This story begins like many others, with the end of the world as we know it. But this time, it wasn't just one event that caused the collapse: a pandemic, war, economic decline, and food shortages. But those ominous signs weren't where it all ended. The real disaster began when these game-like creatures, known as monsters, appeared, and they nearly pushed humanity to the brink of extinction. What followed was predictable. Just like in the novels, metahumans with special powers started emerging. 3 days after the madness began, in the midst of it all, we find a junkie casually munching on chips and sipping soda, as though it's just another lazy Sunday afternoon. And honestly, that's a good sign. It means the world hasn't completely fallen apart yet. This junkie, in the middle of his snack, is living proof that it's not all over. But even though he's alive, he's completely alone. This thought saddens him deeply. He's the only one left in a 100-square-meter apartment, with his mom, dad, grandpa, and grandma all gone. Here's the backstory. His father decided to purchase this place, taking a loan of $200 million from the bank. Not only that, but he also used up all of the family's assets, which were worth another $200 million. The reason the protagonist is living here, despite not being born into wealth, is because there was a condition to qualify for certain tax benefits. To receive these benefits, someone had to live in the property for at least 2 years. Since the protagonist's family couldn't leave it empty, he stayed behind to fulfill this requirement. And so, he's been stuck in this apartment ever since the apocalypse hit. He looks at his phone. No internet connection. This leaves him even more despondent. But then, suddenly, a loud roar shakes the area. He glances up and sees a monster gliding through the sky, heading straight for his apartment. As it draws closer, it opens its filthy mouth, preparing to devour him. The protagonist is completely stunned when he realizes that this thing is about to eat him alive. He braces for the end, but then something odd happens. He notices a system notification flashing on his screen, telling him that a subject, who is even permitted entry, is trying to enter. Surprisingly, the protagonist doesn't seem shocked by the appearance of this system window at all. After all, the defense mechanism is the only reason he survived this long. But it has also become one of his worst nightmares. He tries everything to escape, swinging at the door, kicking it with all his strength, but nothing works. The door won't open. It's been 3 days since the world ended, and this damn ability is the only thing keeping him alive, but it's also the reason he's trapped in this apartment. He sits quietly in the night, alone, staring at the flashing system window. It reads, "The ultimate shut-in cannot leave the house." Naturally, this pisses him off. He's been dragged into this mess, and now he's stuck with some weird title that feels like the worst possible scenario. He feels powerless, having no control over his situation. His biggest problem, though, is the rapidly depleting food supply. The electricity has been cut off since yesterday, and he's been surviving on leftovers from the fridge, but those won't last much longer. All that remains are a few packets of ramen. Then, out of nowhere, the system pings with a notification. It says that he has hunted a Calican and earned a significant amount of EXP. His skill level has increased as a result. The protagonist is completely bewildered. He looks outside and sees the lifeless body of the monster lying on the ground, only to realize that he just hunted it in self-defense without even realizing it. At the same time, the system is notifying him that he's gained a new skill and that nearby loot has met the requirements and is now being calculated. Suddenly, he hears a bunch of wild roars. He looks down and sees goblins going absolutely crazy after devouring the monster's flesh. It seems like the food they were feasting on is starting to disappear, and the goblins are getting pissed off. The reason the body is vanishing is because of the system. The system then states that the loot calculation is complete and that the protagonist has received around 2.2 million won. At that very moment, the lights flicker on, meaning the electricity has been restored. The system displays more information, revealing a new skill called House Declaration, currently at level 3. It's a passive skill, meaning no one can enter the house without the ruler's permission. Another passive skill, Dignity Preservation, at level 1, has also appeared, preserving half of the house's functions to maintain his dignity. Additionally, the system shows that his wallet level is maxed out, and his current balance stands at 2.2 million won. The shut-in can barely contain his joy when he sees the power come back on. He rushes to the fridge to confirm the restoration of the electricity. Not only is it running, but there's water in the taps, and the electric stove is working too. Overwhelmed with excitement, he lets his emotions pour out, crying tears of happiness to see everything reverting to how it was before the world ended. But there's still a tinge of bitterness. He grabs his phone to check if the network has been restored, only to be disappointed to find that it's still down. Just then, his eyes fall on a pen drive on the ground. He picks it up, plugs it into his PC, and when he opens the files, he finds recordings of memories his parents had made. The collection of moments from his childhood to the journey of his life hits him hard, making his heart numb. He longs more than anything to see his family again, and in that moment, he vows to bring them back here, no matter what. Determined, he stands up, his resolve steeled. But just as he's about to get caught up in these righteous thoughts, another system window catches his attention. It tells him that he can now buy items from the store at original prices. This new development leaves him stunned, as he wasn't expecting this at all. Curious, he presses the store icon. The system window pops up, showing him his balance and the option to browse items. Since the system is displaying his balance, it seems to be connected to his wallet. Deciding not to dwell on this too much, he opens the balcony window. But before he can step outside, the system stops him with a warning. He still cannot leave the house. He had expected that, even though his skill level has gone up a bit, he's still trapped. One thing, however, is now clear. If he hunts monsters, his level will increase, and he'll likely unlock new skills. Perhaps one of those skills will allow him to leave the house. The problem, though, is that he has no idea how to kill monsters in his current state. The situation with the Calican wasn't something he can count on happening again. But then, an idea sparks in his mind. He might be able to take out some goblins. So, he grabs a water bottle from the fridge and, with a quick swing, throws it as hard as he can. The bottle goes flying out of the apartment, momentarily making the shut-in happy because he was initially worried he wouldn't even be able to throw objects outside. Encouraged, he decides to take it a step further. He grabs a dumbbell and heads to the balcony. As he steps out, he notices something unusual. The goblins are there, but they seem to be moving away from the area, dragging chunks of meat from the dead monsters. They're basically retreating. This makes the shut-in anxious, seeing his last chance slip away. Without thinking, he swings his hand as fast as he can and throws the dumbbell out, but instead of hitting a goblin, it lands on the dead monster's body, catching the attention of the furious goblins. His heart races in fear as he realizes they've spotted him. He's sweating bullets, absolutely terrified. He still has one dumbbell left, but he doesn't want to waste it by throwing it again. The problem is, he doesn't have anything else in the house that could help him kill these monsters, and he sure isn't strong enough to throw a TV or computer out the window. He watches the goblins getting more furious, completely bamboozled by the bastard who's been throwing stuff at them. Seeing them so riled up has the shut-in sweating. Realizing the goblins are now ready to tear him apart, they charge toward the building, but strangely enough, this situation isn't all that bad. In fact, it's exactly what he wanted. The goblins are getting closer, and now he can hit them without missing. This is his chance. He suddenly remembers the store option he'd gotten earlier. He quickly activates his system panel, opening the store and then presses the list item option. The system asks if he intends to list the dumbbell, and he agrees. The moment he does, the system scans the dumbbell, and he unlocks it in the store. He can now buy more for around 17,001. The shut-in is quite surprised to realize that the price listed is exactly what he paid for the dumbbell online, which makes him believe that the market rates here are the same as before the world ended. So, he ends up buying 2 of these. Once the transaction is complete, the system window flashes with blue light, and the dumbbell starts to materialize. This leaves our boy glowing with happiness. His joyous screams even leak outside of his apartment. The next moment, he throws the dumbbell as hard as he can, and bam! It smashes into the green bastard's head, taking him out for good. In the process, he earns some EXP and around 3,001, which is promptly deposited into his wallet. He's thrilled to see the reward, while the goblins below are left panicked and bewildered, staring at their fallen comrade. Before they can finish paying their respects, they notice another dumbbell flying straight toward them. All of the goblins scatter and scramble to save themselves. The dumbbell hits nothing. Shut-in is absolutely annoyed for missing the shot. Naturally, he spends even more money and buys 3 more dumbbells. He throws them right away, and this time, he takes down one of the goblins. The system quickly notifies him that he's just taken down a level 6 goblin. As usual, he earns some cash, but most importantly, his skill level has increased, and he's unlocked a brand new ability. Turns out, he's gained access to an alternate dimension where he can store items. Excited, he commands the system to open the storage. When it does, the system asks if he wants to place the dumbbell inside. Without hesitation, he agrees. The dumbbell begins to pixelate, and a system window pops up confirming that he successfully stored a non-slip 3-kilogram dumbbell. Then the system asks if he'd like to summon an item from storage. His face lights up with joy as he eagerly says yes. The dumbbell instantly materializes in his hand, leaving him thrilled at the realization that he can now summon items from storage to any place he wants. With the dumbbell back in hand, this bastard grins with a wicked smile because he can barely contain the intrusive thoughts he's having, already imagining all the possibilities this new skill offers. So, he decides it's time to execute his ultimate plan. He takes his sweet time buying dumbbells and storing them all. Once he's done, he commands the storage to open, and with a single command, a bunch of dumbbells appear as if he's holding the key to the gates of Babylon. He lets them rain down like he's Gilgamesh himself. The goblins can do nothing but watch in awe as the massive number of dumbbells falls toward them. Some of them are absolutely terrified, and as soon as the dumbbells start to hit, he starts claiming all the experience points as the goblins drop dead one by one. In total, he earns just over 54,001 from this one swing. The system then asks if he would like to list additional items. The shut-in quickly says yes. Since the max amount of items he can list in the store is 10, he lists around 10 items, including groceries and anything else necessary. He even sells the dumbbell he used to defeat the goblins and gets his money back. But suddenly, he notices something peculiar. Apparently, he's just lost one. He thinks for a moment about what might have caused it, and then it clicks in his mind. It's probably because the refrigerator is on, and the electric, gas, and water bills must be eating into his money. This news is pretty concerning for him because he doesn't have any way to make more money to cover his household expenses. You see, after he hunted the goblins by dropping dumbbells on them, those stinky cowards ran away and abandoned their old home. Since then, he's only managed to kill 2 more goblins, and he's not sure if there are any other creatures left in the area to hunt. When he looks below, all he sees is the rotten head of a dead monster. Shut-in knows that if he doesn't find something to hunt soon, he's screwed. He has to figure something out, no matter what. He stares up at the sky with a dejected face, hoping to spot a flying monster he can hunt. And it looks like luck is on his side because he suddenly spots a giant monster gliding straight through the skies. Shut-in is momentarily shocked, but he doesn't want to waste the opportunity that fate has handed him. He quickly rushes to prepare for the hunt. He ties a big spoon to a ladder and extends it over the balcony since he can't step outside the boundaries. Then, he starts flashing the shiny spoon to grab the monster's attention. Not surprisingly, the monster finally notices the shine coming from the building, and as soon as it locks its eyes on him, it charges straight toward Shut-in to try and eat him alive. Shut-in is pretty pleased to see he successfully baited this dumb monster, and when it collides with the barrier, its head bounces back. Shut-in is confident this is a done deal and that a level up is on his way. But just then, the monster starts flapping its wings violently, sending powerful gusts of air at Shut-in. The air pressure from the monster's wings is so intense that Shut-in can barely stand, constantly getting pushed back. Eventually, the monster vanishes from sight, but when our boy peeks through the balcony, he's shocked to see the creature sitting right outside his window. The creepy thing roars at him, its mouth wide open, twisted tongue dangling, saliva dripping as it eyes our boy like a tasty snack. Shut-in, on the other hand, is too terrified to move. The monster then shuts its mouth and slams its hard beak into the barrier. The system flashes a warning immediately, notifying that an unauthorized entity is attempting to enter. But no matter how much force the monster exerts, it can't break through. Each impact seems useless, yet the sheer strength of its attacks leaves Shut-in bewildered, doubting if the barrier can actually withstand it. He doesn't want to take any chances, so he quickly opens his store and checks out all the listed items he can buy. From what he's observed so far, the loot calculator only activates when a corpse is nearby, and his goblin hunts haven't always been successful because of this. Some survivors had taken the corpses of their fallen allies away, and those corpses weren't calculated as loot. In other words, if the distance between the body and the player exceeded a certain limit, the loot calculator wouldn't activate. Shut-in doesn't want that to happen, so he decides he needs to figure out a way to take down the monster in one shot. That's when he notices the 900 milliliters bottles of canola oil stacked in his store. Without wasting any time, he quickly buys 10 of those bottles. As soon as the transaction is complete, all 10 bottles appear right at his feet. He grabs them all, places a pan on the stove, pours all the oil into the pan, and turns on the heat. Next, he grabs his broomstick, wraps a bunch of disposable paper around it, taping it securely. He soaks the paper with oil, then opens his store again and lists the boiling hot canola oil. The system successfully announces that the boiling hot oil has been listed. After that, he grabs a lighter and gets ready to torch the soaked paper. The paper quickly catches fire, and when he walks to the window, we see the monster still perched on top of his apartment, waiting for its prey to come outside. Little does the monster know, its prey is actually the predator, and the monster is about to learn that the hard way. Shut-in quickly summons the canola oil, and all of the boiling hot oil pours right over the monster's head. As soon as the system window activates, the oil splashes down on it, and the monster starts screaming in agony, which is quite understandable. But the pain doesn't end there because Shut-in is ready to turn up the heat, figuratively and literally. As soon as the fire touches the oil-soaked monster, it ignites instantly. The monster's deafening screams of agony are like music to our boy's ears, a victory whistle he can almost hear. Eventually, the monster begins to collapse to the ground, and the sight of it getting cooked alive is so horrible that Shut-in's face momentarily sours. As soon as the monster hits the ground, its misery comes to an end. The system window pops up, congratulating Shut-in for successfully defeating a Calican. He's awarded a massive amount of EXP, his skill level increases, and he even unlocks a new skill. But that's not all. The system also detects the hunted monster and registers it as loot. Once the loot calculation is complete, he receives a reward of just over 9 million won. Shut-in goes bonkers seeing such a massive amount of money, hardly believing his eyes. But before he can fully recover from the shock, another notification pops up, revealing that the requirements have been met and territory expansion is now underway. Suddenly, the entire building starts shaking like crazy, or at least that's how Shut-in feels. He also feels a strange sensation gripping his heart, and his perspective begins to expand. This strange feeling intensifies, making his heart ache even more while his senses continue to grow. At one point, he literally starts seeing into the other apartments in the building, where he finds a surviving family inside. This completely bewilders him. He never thought there were neighbors living here besides him. His eyes suddenly change color, and he has no idea what's happening to him. For some reason, he can see people now but doesn't understand why. Just as suddenly, he recovers and starts observing things around him as he normally does. Then the system introduces these unexpected neighbors. The first adult is Choi Hung-jun, a husband in his late 30s. The second adult is Park Han, his wife, also in her late 30s. Together, they have 2 daughters, Choi Nan, their 6-year-old firstborn, and Choi Seoin, their 3-year-old second child. The system goes on to state that these individuals meet the requirements to be taken in as citizens of his territory. It asks him if he would like to grant them citizenship. Shut-in is obviously not sure if he should grant them citizenship or what would happen if he didn't. The system immediately answers that any beings not granted citizenship will be expelled from the house and left vulnerable to monster attacks. Faced with this stark reality, Shut-in decides to take the high road. Instead of being a selfish shut-in, he chooses to be a generous landlord. Once the command is given, the system announces that Choi Hung-jun, Park Han, Choi Nan, and Choi Seoin have all been granted citizenship. Shut-in feels pretty great about this because he might have unlocked other skills related to citizenship too. So, he decides to check. That's when the system announces his new skill, known as Ultimate Eyes. But Shut-in isn't fully satisfied yet, so he tries to scan the system to see if there's anything else related to citizenship. The system flashes a new notification regarding a skill known as Ruler Declaration, a passive skill. This skill ensures that no one can enter the house without the ruler's permission. There's also an icon called Citizenship Management. Shut-in quickly decides to explore it because this is exactly what he was looking for. When he opens it, he sees that all 4 citizens are listed along with their power levels and trust levels. But the detail that stands out to him is that he can hold up to 600 citizens. 600 is no small number. It's pretty staggering. He presses on one of the citizens' names and sees all the information about them. There's even data on their experience distribution rate and money distribution rate. He's also given 2 options. He can assign a quest to this citizen or expel them from his territory. He has no idea what the experience and money distribution rates are all about, but he guesses it might refer to how much experience and money the citizens share with him. The fact that he can control the rate sounds like a cheat code to him, as he's the one who decides how much money he wants. He then notices the quest option and wonders how it works. Out of curiosity, he presses the button, and a new screen pops up allowing him to customize the quest description, deadline, reward, and even the penalty for failure. Without much thought, he quickly assigns Choi Hung-jun a simple task: kill 1 goblin within 168 hours. The reward, a small amount of experience. The penalty, nothing, at least for now. The system prompts him to confirm the quest, but before pressing yes, Shut-in starts wondering just how far he can push the penalties. To test it, he changes the penalty to death upon failure. To his shock, the system accepts the prompt without hesitation. He doesn't confirm the quest though, and the system cancels his request automatically. There's no way he'd actually kill someone over failing a quest. He is quite troubled to see this, as the idea that he has the power to kill any citizen at any time, just with a penalty, makes him deeply uneasy. Shut-in starts thinking about what he should do next, and that's when he uses one of his newly acquired skills, Ultimate Eyes. His perspective begins to broaden, and he can literally see everything. Once again, he spots the family downstairs. They seem troubled, and the wife asks her husband what they're supposed to do now. Hung-jun has no clue what to do, but the least he can do is go out and fetch some water. He tells his wife to stay here with the kids and wait for him. But his doting wife, Hwan, isn't on board with that idea since the area outside is crawling with monsters. Hung-jun knows this too, but he doesn't really have another choice. His wife points out that he might not even find water, but he reminds her that there's a convenience store nearby, and since it's a big one, there should be something there. The thirsty kids start begging their father for water, which only makes Hung-jun feel more pressured to go outside. Finally, he decides he has no choice but to venture out and get what his family needs the most. He tells his wife to trust him, promising he'll come back soon. Since Hwan doesn't have a better option, she lowers her head and lets him go, though it's clear she's terrified. At that exact moment, Shut-in shuts off his skill, and suddenly we're snapped back to his apartment. Shut-in didn't realize just how bad things had gotten outside. He opens his store interface to see if he can increase the store storage. When he activates his window skill, he notices that all 3 storage-related skills are still at level 1, but the good news is they can be upgraded with just a single point, and he currently has 3. This realization makes him happy as hell. The system prompts him, asking if he wants to increase the level of the ultimate shut-in-store skill. Without a second of hesitation, he chooses yes. The system window lights up with a glowing blue light, and once the upgrade is complete, the system announces that the store is now at level 2. The number of items he can list has increased to 20. As a bonus, a 10% discount has also been applied to the prices of all items. After the upgrade, he realizes he still has 2 points left. After thinking it through, he decides to invest them into the store and the dignity preservation skill, since there's a chance he might encounter more citizens from now on. Eventually, he ends up leveling up his store again. Once it hits level 3, the number of items he can list jumps to 40, and he unlocks a new feature, the ability to restore items. It's basically a function that can turn old, worn-out items back into new ones. It doesn't sound half bad, and honestly, Shut-in is thrilled. He pushes the storage level to 3 without wasting time, opens the store, and purchases some Samasu water and Juru tangerines. He then decides to upgrade his other skills too. The system prompts him, asking if he wants to increase the level of the ultimate Shut-in's dignity preservation skill. Of course, he says yes without hesitation. Shut-in has a clear plan in mind. If he provides essentials like electricity and water to his neighbors, he can request all sorts of things in return. With the dignity preservation skill now at level 2, he unlocks a new feature, the ability to register vassals. Though Shut-in has no clue what that even means, he's intrigued. Meanwhile, Hung-jun is ready to leave his house in order to provide for his family. Hwan can barely stand to watch her husband leave them behind like this, but the man reassures their little girls that he'll be back shortly. He encourages them to be brave and protect the house while he's gone. The girls, though, are visibly terrified and don't want their father to leave. Their small voices tremble as they beg him to stay. Hung-jun then gives each of them a gentle pat on the head and promises he'll bring back food and water for everyone. He tells them to listen to their mother while he's away, but then one of the girls reaches her breaking point. Tears start streaming down her face as she reminds him about the monsters outside. The scene transitions to the recent past, a moment frozen in time, back when the two girls were happily playing together in the park as if the world wasn't on the verge of collapse. But then everything changes. Chaos erupts as goblins suddenly flood the streets. The girls freeze, the joy on their faces replaced by sheer terror. They bolt from the playground as fast as their little legs can carry them. The older sister instinctively grabs her younger sister's hand, pulling her along as they run for their lives. But just then, their father grabs the older girl, while the mother grabs the younger one, and the entire family runs for their lives. As the father recalls the terror from the past, he hesitates before stepping outside. He doesn't want to leave his girls behind, especially since this could be the last time he sees them if he steps out, but he has no choice. A man's got to do what a man's got to do. Just then, the doorknob starts rattling, taking everyone by surprise. Hung-jun cautiously walks toward the gate, gripping a golf club in his hand. The rattling on the door suddenly stops, but the silence is broken when a voice from the other side asks him to open the door. The voice of another human from behind the gate terrifies Hung-jun even more. He struggles to believe there's actually a person behind the door, but it could also be a monster, so he doesn't want to take any risks. Our boy on the other side of the door keeps calling out, while the man inside takes his stance. But then the voices stop again, and the silence makes him believe that whoever was there has left. Out of nowhere, the front gate swings open, and the blinding light that pours through forces him to quickly pull his family in close, instinctively protecting them. But, of course, there's nothing to worry about. It's just Shut-in standing there with a plastic bag full of supplies. Hung-jun questions his identity, and Shut-in introduces himself as Kim-jun from next door. He explains that he has some water and tangerines, and after they eat and drink, he'd love to sit down and talk for a bit. Hung-jun is surprised for a moment. Now that he thinks about it, his family desperately needs water and food, so he doesn't see any reason to refuse the help. He has a nagging feeling that this boy might actually be able to assist them in their struggle, so Hung-jun warmly welcomes Shut-in inside. Meanwhile, the little girls are totally creeped out of their minds. They have no idea who this stranger is, and their unease is written all over their faces. Their hesitation is so obvious that even Shut-in can sense the tension, which makes him wonder if his sudden appearance gave them too big of a shock. As he sits there, he looks around and notices how dark the place is. It's clear that this family has intentionally covered the entire apartment with curtains, which he finds to be a pretty clever move. It definitely reduces the chances of being spotted or attacked by monsters. The first thing on Shut-in's mind is to bring some light into the room. He focuses his thoughts on this single task, and suddenly the room lights up. Hung-jun is left surprised to see the lights come back on while Shut-in pulls out a bottle of water and tells him to just treat his children with this. There's no time to be surprised. The man grabs the water bottles and hands them over to his girls. Both thirsty girls start gulping down the water, and each sip feels more satisfying than the last. Seoin, the younger girl, even chokes a little from drinking too fast. Once they're done drinking, June decides to treat them to something else. He pulls out a tangerine and hands one over to Seoin. The girl's eyes light up as she drools at the sight of the sweet, juicy fruit. But before she can dig in, her mother decides to peel it for her. After removing the peel, she feeds the tangerine to her daughter. The juicy sweetness bursts in Seoin's mouth, sending her neurons into absolute overdrive. Her cheeks tingle with the sensation, and she can barely hold back her excitement. Her mother asks if it's good, and Seoin nods, barely able to contain her joy as she responds with a simple yes. The older sister, Nyan, eagerly starts asking for some tangerine too. Once she takes a bite, her reaction mirrors her little sister's, pure joy as the sweetness takes over her senses. Meanwhile, June is bombarded with notifications from the system. It seems the trust levels of the entire family toward him have increased. Seoin's trust has even reached 50, unlocking her loyalty stat, which has now surpassed 30. The system informs June that Cho Seoin has fulfilled the requirements to be registered as a vassal and has even reached level 2. He reflects on this for a moment. Although she meets the requirements, she's still so young. Unlike regular citizens, he can only register up to 10 vassals, and they need to be capable of carrying out orders at least at the level of Cho Hung-jun. Although the little girl's trust has skyrocketed, Hung-jun's is still at 31. Since Hung-jun is the key person in the family, June knows he needs to raise his trust even more. Suddenly, Hung-jun calls out to him and thanks him sincerely for all the kindness he's shown to his family. He admits he desperately wants to repay the favor, but isn't sure how he can do that right now. In response, June decides they should step into the corridor for a talk. Later, once they're out in the corridor, June casually asks Hung-jun if he's received citizenship. Now that it's mentioned, a system window suddenly pops up in front of Hung-jun. He admits that this notification appeared for his whole family about 30 minutes ago, confirming they had received citizenship. June follows up by asking if anything unusual happened at that time. Hung-jun instantly agrees, explaining that they couldn't move their bodies for a short while when it happened. After piecing things together, June realizes that people must be temporarily frozen when they're granted citizenship. Seizing the moment, June addresses Hung-jun again, this time with a promise. He tells the man he'll do everything in his power to help him return to the life he had before this madness started. Hung-jun is absolutely bewildered by this declaration, but before he can say much, June doubles down, promising that he'll protect them from monsters and make sure no creature ever invades their home again. Hung-jun isn't 100% sure if this is even possible, so June confidently assures him that yes, it is possible. Still, Hung-jun knows it won't come for free. He directly asks what he would have to do to receive the protection. June doesn't beat around the bush either. He makes it clear that there's a risk involved and Hung-jun might lose his life in the process. He then asks if he is still ready to go through with it. Hung-jun hesitates before responding. After all, who wouldn't value their own life? But since he has a family to protect, he steels himself and confidently declares that he's ready to do whatever it takes. He goes on to say that even before June showed up, he was already risking his life to go out for food and water to protect his family. June smiles, happy to hear this because he's finally gotten the kind of help he needs. Then June remembers Hung-jun holding that golf club earlier and asks him how much it cost. Hung-jun isn't sure why June is asking, but he answers anyway, saying it cost him around 500,000 won, more or less. We all know why June was asking about the golf club, and he's bummed out after hearing the price tag. He's unsure if he should even list it in his shop right now since he can't afford to blow his money this early. Hung-jun notices his reaction and asks why he suddenly brought it up. June quickly brushes off the question, and after shifting the topic, he asks the man if he remembers the day the monsters appeared. Of course, how could Hung-jun forget that day? It was a weekend, and it still traumatizes him whenever he thinks about it. June acknowledges this and points out that those who stayed at home that day survived. He reflects how a single goblin doesn't possess much strength, and their levels are lower than adult males. The real threat from goblins comes from the fact that they always move in groups. But when you think about it, humans are the same. They have the power to form groups too. That's why he wants to focus on growing his own army. He addresses Hung-jun again, telling him that from now on, they both will be looking for other survivors. With June's attractive proposal of supplies in exchange for looking for other survivors, Cho Hung-jun's trust has increased. Our boy is just chilling on his couch, and he's passively becoming trustworthy right now. The kids have a trust level high enough to become vassals, but their parents are a lot more wary of the neighbor. June hopes that he can eventually see his family again if he continues to take more people in. His sullen thought was interrupted by a loud shriek downstairs. He hurriedly opens his balcony to check out what's going on. In front of the building was what he needed the most. Other people. The group of young men and women are facing off against a horde of goblins. As much as he wants to, it would be hard for June to help them in combat. The goblins snarl, and the young man at the forefront takes on a flawless, pitching form. As soon as that absolute heater of a fastball leaves his hand, a goblin falls, its skull cracking. With one of the monsters down, the winning odds of the group just increased. June is shocked to say the least. Then came one of the girls with her bow, launching 2 arrows at once. One shot nets the group another 2 kills. The remaining goblin is caught off guard as its allies fall so quickly. Then came the batter, jumping in the air to bash the last enemy's head in with sheer force and momentum. The batter vaporized that goblin in a single strike. The other goblins, out of range, saw their allies getting slaughtered and immediately fled for their lives. It seems like this group is exceptionally competent when it comes to monster hunting. Still on edge, one of the girls heard a loud thud coming from behind. She draws her bowstring, expecting a sneak attack from a pesky goblin, but it was just a ramen packet dropped from above. This is June's way of attracting the group's attention. He waved at them to come in, desperate to get the group into the building. He looked like an absolute goof, flailing his arms around, but he could not think of anything else that would attract their attention. Suddenly, his doorbell rang. Hung June must have returned after receiving his quest outside the door. Mr. Choi stood nervously, holding a heavy box. June welcomed him in, but as soon as Hung June tried to walk inside, he was stopped by an invisible wall. June's system deemed him unqualified to enter the house. He reckoned the barrier must also apply to citizens, and it could be that only registered vassals may enter his domain freely. Since that was the case, Hung June just handed his benefactor the box. Inside were all the things that could be used as weapons in their home. Upon opening, June was pleased to find quite a decent haul, knives and a whole toolbox, potentially useful for listing in the shop. June nonchalantly opened his store and bought 5 water bottles and 5 packets of ramen. Seeing him conjure precious supplies out of thin air nearly knocked Hung June off his feet in shock. June placed the supplies into the box and tasked his citizen to go to the first floor and leave them at the entrance. Hung June felt a little apprehensive about going downstairs, knowing the danger outside, but the young man assured him it was fine. After observing the enemy's behavior, June discovered that goblins were only active in broad daylight. The purpose of the supplies was obvious. He wanted to use them to attract those people outside to his domain. In these trying times, the one with food and water holds power, and that group would definitely come to him once they realized he had supplies. June didn't give Mr. Choi any instructions other than to leave the box downstairs. If he didn't have to face or fight monsters, the task should be easy. Seeing how receptive Mr. Choi was to his requests, June felt compelled to do something nice for him. He opened the quest menu and officially listed the delivery of water and ramen as a quest, adding a small amount of EXP as a reward upon completion. Mr. Choi was surprised by the quest prompt that popped up in front of him. He asked if the mechanics were similar to video games, and June confirmed. Given that Mr. Choi was only at level 9, leveling up to get good rewards was imperative. The reliable dad took a deep breath and bravely made his way downstairs. With the power still out in most parts of the building, he had to take the stairs. He even took his golf club for protection. From the 20th floor, Big Bro had to walk all the way to the ground floor. Just going down those stairs took a toll on his dad bod, but at least all he had to do was put down the supplies. As soon as he got outside, he saw the silhouette of a group flocking together and instantly assumed the worst-case scenario. With his paranoia and anxiety, he immediately assumed he was staring at a pack of vile and disgusting goblins. His first instinct was to get the hell out as fast as he could, but in his rush, Mr. Choi rolled his ankle and fell to the ground. The water bottles and the packs of ramen flew out of the box as he nosedived onto the pavement. The pain of falling was real, but his fear of being noticed by the group was more gut-wrenching. He pleaded for his foot to respond and move, fearing the group might have already noticed him. He felt their presence closing in and, pathetically, raised his hand to protect his head from an attack. But when he heard the silhouettes approaching speak human tongue, he felt a mixture of relief and embarrassment. They weren't goblins. They were just a bunch of young people. Upstairs, June received a notification that unauthorized subjects were trying to enter his domain. To check out what was happening, he opened his ultimate eyes and expanded his all-seeing vision around his territory. Unexpectedly, it seemed like Mr. Choi had led the group inside the building. The group was naturally wary of the unfamiliar place. All they knew for sure was that someone had thrown a ramen packet from the higher floors. That must mean there was food in the building, which could remedy their dwindling supplies. June's system deemed the group eligible for citizenship and prompted him to propose inviting them to be official citizens. In the process of expanding his territory, he was able to forcefully grant citizenship to the Choi family since they were already inside his expanded area of influence. But it looked like outsiders were given a choice. If that was the case, the group might just decline his invitation. Just as he was stressing over a contingency plan, the doorbell rang. He took a look at the digital monitor and saw Mr. Choi standing outside once more. Finally, thinking of a viable plan, June chose to edit Big Bro's quest. He gave Hung June a new task, to treat the 6 guests to a warm meal. The edits to the quest quickly popped up in Hung June's face. June urged him to accomplish the quest, as he had something in mind. Since the quest seemed innocuous enough, Mr. Choi accepted and walked over to the group. It didn't take him long to convince them to go in and go with the plan, with the promise of a decent meal. In exchange, they could offer citizenship to all 6 of these people. June also granted all of them access to his floor. Just like that, the number of his citizens increased to 10. With the increase in population came a money and EXP boost of 10%. He wasn't expecting such good buffs so easily. That boost would undoubtedly be useful on monster hunts. We take those. Looking at the Citizen Management tab, he saw their names, levels, and trust points. At the lead was Haddingon, at level 23, with 19 trust points. As for Kongdu, Kim Gaeong, Yuan Kim, Gaeon, and Moon Bho, they all hovered around levels 10 to 17 with varying trust points. A level 23 metahuman is on the same level of strength as the Calican that June killed recently. Curious, he singled out Haddingon and saw the awakened ability simply called Baseball Throw. It's a D-rank skill that consumes stamina to increase the power of a thrown ball by 3 times. In reality, depending on who throws the baseball, it can become a lethal weapon, but if there's a skill that multiplies its power by 3 times, it becomes an incredibly fearsome weapon. It's a perfect hunting skill to kill monsters. As for Haddingon's trust, it can steadily be increased in various ways. For now, June set the EXP distribution rate for all 6 of them to 70%. With that, June figured he just needed to give these people some monster hunting quests, and he could sit back and passively earn both EXP and cash. He couldn't help but feel like he was playing an auto-hunting game. However, he still needed to get to know these people to gauge if they were a good fit. They could be the key to making his reunion with his family possible. After all, out of the blue, Haddingon's trust level had increased without June doing anything. It wasn't only him. Even Kim Gaeong and Yuan Kim's trust levels had gone up too. Mr. Choi played the role of a gracious host and welcomed the group into his home. Mrs. Choi came running in, confused as to why they suddenly had so many strangers inside their house. Her husband promised to explain everything later, but for now, everyone needed a decent meal. Without prior notice, it would take her a bit of time to prepare something from scratch. But they needed her cooking to make June's plan possible. She thought for a second and locked in as she accepted the request to cook. It seemed like the group of young bloods had manners, especially Haddingon. As the de facto leader of the squad, he asked Mr. Choi for more info on the man known as June. Well, Mr. Choi wasn't exactly sure what Jaehyun's deal was. He didn't know anything about the young man other than the fact that they'd been neighbors for a while now. He added that June was quite an intriguing person. He had the ability to restore living conditions before the apocalypse in selected areas. After all, that just confirmed Donggon's assessment that a metahuman was behind all these resources. He reckoned that June must have a broken ability to be capable of giving away precious supplies for free. Thankfully, Donggon was smart enough not to get any funny ideas. He figured that impressing someone so powerful, no matter what, would be the best move. If they could have someone powerful enough to provide electricity, food, and water on their side, it would be a game-changer in the current world. Miraculous abilities were as rare as they were powerful. Since it would take a while to prepare the meal, Mr. Choi asked if the group wanted to take a shower. The young ladies immediately perked up as soon as they heard that they could finally get cleaned up. Since the power was functional, most of the other home facilities could be used too. Mr. Choi smiled and added that they had plenty of warm water available. The thought of getting 3 days' worth of grime washed off their bodies was heavenly. Add warm water to that, and the ladies were hyped. Since the Choi household had a bathroom in the living room and master bedroom, the 2 ladies could go ahead and wash up first. They looked at him like he was the Messiah, but the boys were still apprehensive. Donggon reckoned that this enigmatic June guy must be a metahuman with an ability far more powerful than his. When one of the guys suggested they beat up their benefactor to see who was stronger, Donggon scolded his junior to stop talking nonsense. They should try to impress their benefactor, if anything. He even went as far as to beg the lunatic to sit tight, not do anything stupid, and just stay quiet. In any case, the group's goal was to secure as much food and supplies as they could. They couldn't screw up a chance to do that without a fuss. So, Donggon warned his group to be polite and always read the room. Fortunately, their boneheaded member respected Donggon's orders, but one of them was visibly uncomfortable for some unknown reason. Being the good leader that he was, Donggon approached the anxious Buho and apologized for dragging him into such a mess. Donggon felt guilty for inviting everyone to his house right when the apocalypse struck. Buho tried to brush it off, but his anxious look was palpable. Donggon promised that as soon as they secured enough supplies, they would go to Buho's grandmother's place together. Buho thanked Donggon for his consideration, but he knew deep inside that it was already way too late. On the 3rd day of this accursed apocalypse, the possibility of a frail old woman being alone in her home and still alive was slim to none. But at least the place was nearby. Donggon was optimistic that they could get there as long as they all hung in there and worked together. Suddenly, the group's discussion was interrupted by the door opening. The aura of the newcomer was electric. The door creaked open, and all their eyes were glued to the entrance. Donggon felt like they were being stalked by a fearsome predator and instinctively gripped his ball, ready to throw it any second. As it turns out, it was just Jaehyun, carrying plastic bags in both hands. He overheard the group's conversation and offered to help with their predicament. They all felt a mixture of fear and assurance, realizing that the person who just entered might be able to save them from this apocalyptic pit of despair. The protagonist entered the room, declaring, "We'll use a bait strategy later." At the table, bows were laid out. The captain of the group looked uneasy, while a girl remarked, "That might work." Another boy from the group added, "That's only if things go smoothly." Suddenly, system messages appeared before the protagonist. "Citizen, Choi Hyungjin has completed his quest. The quest reward, 30,000 won, has been given." The protagonist glanced at the notification and thought, Oh, was money required? So if I have money, I can raise the level of my citizens? Unless it's really needed, I won't have to use that for now." More system messages appeared. "Citizen, Choi Hyungjin's trust has increased. Citizen, Choi Hyungjin's trust has reached 50. Loyalty has been unlocked. Citizen, Choi Hyungjin's loyalty has surpassed 30. He has met all the requirements to be registered as a vassal. Name, Choi Hyungjin, LV9, Trust, 51 Loyalty, 62 Awakened Ability, None EXP Distribution Rate, 0% Money Distribution Rate, 0% Give Quest, Expel." The protagonist clicked the button saying, "Register Choi Hyungjin as a vassal." Choi began to glow. Shocked, he exclaimed, "Something just happened to me." More system messages appeared. "Your first vassal has been successfully registered. You have been granted the skill Vassal Summon as a reward. Vassal Summon, you can summon the vassal into your house. However, you can only summon that vassal 2 hours after they have been first summoned. Name, Choi Hyungjin, LV20, plus, title, First Servant Trust, 51 Loyalty, 62 Awakened Ability, Strength of a Gorilla. Give Quest, Strength of a Gorilla, C. Passive, you have obtained strength comparable to a gorilla. First Servant, the EXP and gold earned by your vassal via hunting will be doubled. Ultimate Eyes can be used to summon your vassal within 5 meters of your house." The protagonist noticed something and said, "Wait, what's this plus button?" Another system message appeared. "Would you like to use 1 million won to increase your vassal's level?" Shocked, the protagonist thought, 1 million won? A girl from the group noticed and asked, "Is something the matter?" The protagonist quickly replied, It's nothing." "How do you feel?" He turned to Choi, who was looking at his hands. Choi replied, "I feel like my strength is overflowing." "You're the one who did this to me?" The protagonist nodded and said, "Yes, that's right." Choi, still astonished, said, "I feel like I've become 10 years younger." The protagonist grinned and said, "I'd like for you to join this mission as well." Choi, surprised, asked, "Pardon?" The protagonist thought to himself, citizens are given 10% additional EXP, and vassals get 2 times the EXP. His gains will be astronomical. Turning back to Choi, he said, "You must kill as many monsters as possible." Choi replied firmly, "All right, I'll do that." The protagonist smiled and said, "I'll be counting on you." Then, the group descended to the first floor. One member questioned, "Dongan, is there really a need to check the first floor? The windows are all broken, and the place is generally in bad shape." The leader, Dongan, responded, "We should check regardless. You heard what Jaehyun said, no? We're here as a rescue team." Dongan thought to himself, this is the first mission given by Jaehyun, to rescue all survivors in the building and transport them to the 30th floor. He crossed his arms and said, "The crux of this mission would be to lure large numbers of goblins into the apartment building and kill them." Looking back at the group, he added, "In order to do that, we have to find as many survivors as we can. You guys know that, right?" One member replied, all right, I know." Dongan nodded, "Good. Let's start from Unit 101. We don't know where the goblins might pop out from, so stay alert." The group began checking Units 101 and 102. The search continued from room to room. Suddenly, they stopped, horrified by the sight of countless dead bodies. Clenching his teeth, Dongan said, "Let's go." In another room, the situation was the same. The group fell into depression. Dongan covered his eyes and muttered, "Damn it, there's nothing on the first floor." Looking up, he ordered, "Let's go to the second floor quickly." On the second floor, the same grim sight awaited them. Dead bodies everywhere. The group was in shock. Dongan cursed, "Fuck." To the third floor. On the third floor, they walked through the corridors. Dongan knocked on a door and called, "Is there anyone inside?" The group began knocking on every door, shouting, "Is there anyone inside?" But no one responded. Disappointed, Dongan said, "Let's go up on the 4th floor." Dongan knocked again, calling, "Is there anyone inside?" "We're a rescue team." A door opened slightly, and a man asked, "Are you really the rescue team?" Dongan replied, "We are." The man hesitated before asking, "See, can I have water? I'm really thirsty." Dongan opened his bag, took out a water bottle, and handed it to him, saying, "Here you go." The man, in disbelief, asked, "Why, you're really a rescue team and giving this to me?" Dongan explained, "We're actually fellow residents of this apartment, but we're here to rescue survivors. There's a place safer than here, so let's go together." Shocked, The man closed the door briefly before reopening it fully. Extending his hand, he said, "Here. I'm sorry for being so paranoid. I'm Hong Young-soo. I'll be counting on you." Dongan shook his hand. "I'm Ha Dongan. I hope to get along with you as well." Turning to the girls in the group, he instructed, "Gaeong, Hyren, I want you guys to bring them to the 30th floor and come back here." The girls replied, "Okay, all right." Hearing this, Hong Young-soo exclaimed in shock, "The 30th floor? We're not getting out of the apartment?" Suddenly, a boy stepped out of the room, exclaiming, now I feel like I'll stay alive. "Dad, didn't I tell you people would come for us? They probably have a helicopter up there." One of the girls from the group replied, "That isn't it. But if you go up, you'll be able to get a warm meal and a shower." Another girl stepped out of the room, asking, "A shower? Are you serious?" The girl replied, "Yes, a warm shower." Excited, the second girl ran toward the group, urging, "Dad, stop dawdling around. Let's go up quickly." The father sighed, "Seriously, you guys? All right." System messages appeared before the protagonist. "The number of citizens you have is now 40. The EXP and gold that your citizens earn has been increased by 90%. The protagonist thought to himself, "With this, I now have 40 citizens." He continued his plan, thinking, "I'll have the children and elderly stay at Choi Hyungjin's house first, and have the others live in the corridors." The leader of the group approached him and reported, "There's a total of 40 people. They're all we could find." The protagonist asked, "Is that all of them?" The leader replied, "Yes. We checked everywhere up to the 29th floor. It seems like quite a few of them didn't leave their houses from the start." The protagonist responded, "Great work." He then closed his eyes, thinking, Choi Hyungjin's house is almost full already. This should be good enough. After that, he activated Ultimate Eyes to check how the preparations were going. He observed everything running smoothly and, satisfied, deactivated the power, saying, "All right then." Looking up, he declared, "We'll move on to the second stage of the goblin hunt." Sometime later, in a corridor, the leader addressed the group, "Attention, everyone." Crossing his arms, he continued, "I'll now start the briefing. Our goal is to drag out all the goblins hiding underground. We'll first start from B1. We'll split into 2 teams, draw out those on B1, and kill them. After that, we'll kill off the rest of them on B2. A nervous team member raised his hand and asked, "What if there's way more goblins than initially expected? Wouldn't we get stuck and isolated on the first floor in that case? Also, if something happens while transporting the goblin corpses," a girl holding a bow interrupted confidently, "Don't worry, I'll kill all of them by myself." The leader nodded in agreement, saying, "Yeah, unlike last time, we have plenty of arrows, so we'll be fine." The nervous guy sighed, "Well, if you're that confident." Suddenly, they heard a sound and turned back. To their surprise, it was a goblin approaching them. The girl immediately launched arrows, hitting the goblin. A boy armed with a baseball bat rushed forward and, with one powerful swing, smashed the goblin's head. Another team member teased the boy, "Why'd you bring a bow along if you were going to use the bat? Didn't you just say you needed the bow?" The boy laughed sheepishly. "Oh, you're right." The girl noticed something unusual and exclaimed, "Look over there. The corpses are disappearing." A boy in the group thought to himself, "Is this also Jaehyun's ability?" The leader quickly refocused the group, saying, "Alrighty, let's go down to B1. Thinking to himself, "I knew he'd have a solution." System messages appeared before the protagonist. "Citizen, Hadongan, Citizen, Kim Gaeong, Citizen. You hire in their trust has increased." The protagonist opened a water bottle, thinking, "This is good timing." While I wasn't intending to do so, it became as if I was watching over them. More messages appeared. "Citizen, Moon Byung-go's trust has reached 50. Loyalty has been unlocked." "Citizen, Moon Byung-go's loyalty has surpassed 30. He has met all the requirements to be registered as a vassal." The protagonist, surprised by the messages, thought, "What? That only took a few hours." He smiled, thinking, "This worked out great. The more vassals I get, the faster our growth will be." More messages appeared. Name, Moon Byung-go, LV10, Trust, 55 Loyalty, 88 Awakened Ability, None EXP Distribution Rate, 70% Money Distribution Rate, 0% Give Quest, Expel. The protagonist, impressed, thought, his loyalty is at 88? Well, it's not like that's a bad thing. He clicked the button, saying, "With that, I'll confirm registering him as a vassal." At B1F, the team encountered more goblins. Moon Byung-go suddenly began to glow as the group fought. Confused and worried, others asked, "What's going on?" The light was so intense that it blinded the monsters temporarily, but it soon turned chaotic. The goblins' eyes turned red before they were blinded entirely for a brief moment. The leader shouted, "I don't know what's going on, but never mind that. Run." Everyone started running, launching arrows at the monsters. A girl expertly shot 3 arrows in quick succession, taking down multiple goblins. But soon, more goblins appeared, surrounding the area. A boy exclaimed, "There's too many of them." The leader cursed, "Fuck. I didn't expect we'd attract this many goblins. Another member shouted. It feels like even the ones in B2 all came up to B1. Quick, to the emergency exit. Reaching the door, they pushed through and quickly began blocking it as monsters tried to force their way inside. Despite their combined effort, the door started to give way. One member shouted, "Ugh, hanging on is hard. Go to the first floor, quickly." Suddenly, Choi Hyungjin appeared and ordered, "Move." Using his strength of a gorilla, he slammed the door shut with immense force. The leader called out in concern, "Mr. Choi." Choi replied firmly, "Just go." He held the door for a while but began to tire, thinking, "I must stop them here. I have to do this, no matter what." Moments later, the leader shouted, "Mr. Choi, we're safe now. Come up quickly." Choi responded, "Okay." But as he started moving, he slipped and fell. The monsters pushed through the door. Choi yelled to the group, "Gee, go on without me." As a large monster approached him, the leader hesitated, but another member rushed past, killing the monster and extending a hand to Choi. Before Choi could take it, more monsters appeared. One grabbed Choi's leg, but he suddenly vanished into thin air. The rescuer stood frozen in confusion, mumbling, "Mister?" Another monster lunged at him, but an arrow from the leader stopped it just in time. The group launched more arrows at the incoming horde while the leader shouted, "Deoksu, come." Deoksu ran toward the stairs, with monsters chasing him. The group continued firing arrows, determined to hold the line until he reached them. Outside the building, a monster was devouring goblins relentlessly. With its massive, sharp teeth, it consumed them as if they were nothing but snacks. Yet, its hunger remained insatiable. The monster turned its gaze toward the towering building where the protagonist and his group were. Staring at the structure, the monster growled, "I'll kill you all." Inside the building, Choi suddenly appeared out of thin air, collapsing onto the floor. Breathing heavily, he muttered, "Phew. I nearly died there." As he looked up, the protagonist stood before him, his expression calm but focused. "I've continuously observed the situation through ultimate eyes in case something were to happen," the protagonist thought. "I'm glad the vassal summon skill worked." Choi winced, feeling pain in his leg. Confused, he looked down and asked, "Just when did I?" The protagonist quickly moved toward him, asking, "Are you all right?" Choi hesitated before replying, "I'm okay." A wound like this is something I can quickly recover from. However, the protagonist wasn't convinced. After inspecting the injury, he thought, "I better list some medical supplies as well." He turned to Choi, saying, "Please wait here for a moment," before Choi could respond. "What? But I..." The protagonist was already walking into his room. In the room, the protagonist opened a first aid kit and inspected its contents. Medical supplies are an absolute necessity in situations like this, he thought, memories of his younger days flashing through his mind. After spreading the contents on the floor, he contemplated. "With that being said, I only have 40 slots. I can't list all of these." Suddenly, an idea struck him. Carefully, he placed everything back inside the first aid box. System messages appeared before him. Used first aid kit, 77,331. Reclaim, satisfied. He grabbed the kit and exited the room. Reaching Choi, the protagonist said, "Please show me where you're injured." Reluctantly, Choi rolled up his pants slightly, revealing the wound. "I'm really all right, though." The protagonist dismissed his concerns. "I'll start with disinfecting your wound," Choi sighed. "Oh, okay." The protagonist worked quickly and efficiently, cleaning and dressing the wound. System messages appeared. "Citizen, Choi Hyungjin's trust has increased." "Citizen, Choi Hyungjin's loyalty has also increased." As the treatment finished, Choi exhaled deeply. "Phew. Thank you." The protagonist returned the supplies to their place, thinking, "I wonder if the rest are faring well." He turned to Choi, saying, "Please rest here for a little while. I have something else to attend to." Choi nodded. "Ah, all right." Observing the group, the protagonist closed his eyes and activated his ultimate eyes, thinking, "Let's take a look at the lower floors." On the lower floors, Deoksu was running for his life as a girl launched an arrow, striking a pursuing monster. Other members of the group shot arrows as well, shouting, "Deoksu, run!" Deoksu sprinted as fast as he could while his friends continued to take down monsters near him. Just as he was about to reach the group, two monsters closed in on him. A friend saw this and, wielding his bow like a sword, swiftly killed the monsters. The boy fought with surprising skill, prompting one group member to exclaim, "What the hell? Was Byunggo always that good at fighting?" Observing from afar, the protagonist thought, "Great, they're doing well." System messages appeared. Name, Moon Byunggo, LV30. Plus, title, Second Servant, Trust, 55, Loyalty, 88, Awakened Ability, Teleport, Give Quest, Teleport, A, utilizes mental strength to move between distances. It can only be used in areas where the user can see. Depending on how many people are designated for teleportation and how far the distance will be, More mental strength would be used, the protagonist smirked. It was indeed a great decision to register him as a vassal. The group's plan monsters continued to fall as the group fought valiantly. The leader shouted, John, you have got the extension socket ready, right? Jian responded, yes. The leader turned to the girl. How about the water tank? She nodded. We're ready here, too. The leader then called to Byunggo. Byunggo, come in now. Byunggo retreated to a safe point. The group hoisted a large water tank and threw it down the stairs. Water splashed everywhere, soaking the monsters. The leader shouted, Jian, now. Jian flipped a switch, Roger. Electricity coursed through the soaked monsters, electrocuting them. System messages appeared for the protagonist. You have hunted a goblin, LV6. You have hunted a goblin, LV6. You have hunted a goblin, LV7. You have obtained a large amount of EXP. A total of 334,464 one has been deposited into the Ultimate Shutton's wallet. Your skill level has increased. You have obtained a new skill, Protagonist's Awakening. Suddenly, the protagonist felt a sharp pain. A small circle of energy formed around him, rapidly expanding until it engulfed his entire house. The circle continued to grow, eventually reaching the lower floors where the group was fighting. System messages appeared. Hostile beings have been detected. Commencing their removal, the monsters began to explode one by one. System messages flooded the screen. You have hunted a goblin, LV6. You have hunted a goblin, LV6. You have hunted a goblin, LV7. You have hunted a goblin, LV6. You have hunted a goblin, LV7. You have hunted a goblin, LV6. The goblins stirred restlessly in the dimly lit underground level, their guttural chatter echoing through the cold concrete halls. They moved toward the stairs, their clawed feet scraping against the floor. But then, something loomed behind them. One goblin sensed it first. It stiffened, its sharp ears twitching as an overwhelming presence bore down on them. Slowly, it turned around and froze. A monster stood there, towering over them, its massive frame heaving with each breath. A beast of nightmares, its thick fur bristling with raw power. Then, the monster's bellow shook the very walls. Before the goblins could react, it lunged forward. Fangs sank into flesh. The goblin's shriek was cut short as it was lifted into the air. Its body crushed effortlessly. Blood splattered across the floor. The other goblins recoiled in terror. The beast struck again. Its claws raked through the horde, slicing through flesh like paper. The goblins' feeble attempts to fight back were meaningless. More and more of them fell, their bodies torn apart as if they were nothing. Then, out of nowhere, two goblins flanked the monster from behind, leaping at it with desperate shrieks. But they never had a chance. With a savage twist, the monster's claws ripped through them, their bodies crumpling to the ground. One goblin let out a deafening roar, a last attempt to intimidate the beast. But the monster, unfazed, only turned its glowing eyes toward them. It was too powerful. Yet, the goblins did not stop. Some managed to climb onto its back, their jagged teeth sinking into its thick hide. The beast roared in pain, thrashing wildly. More goblins swarmed, clawing, biting, overwhelming it. The monster staggered. It tried to shake them off, but it was too late. Pain surged through its body as the goblins clung on, relentless in their assault. Then boom. Without warning, the goblins exploded. The bear monster gasped, stepping back in shock. Its breathing was ragged as it tried to process what had just happened. Then, a system message appeared before its eyes. You have been granted citizenship. The beast's body shuddered. It began to shrink. Its towering frame slowly collapsed inward, muscles fading, fur receding. Before long, the monstrous form was gone, and in its place a girl. She lay unconscious on the cold floor, her body motionless. 30 floors above, from his home, the protagonist watched everything. His eyes widened. He couldn't believe what he had just seen. His gaze locked onto the girl, confusion swirling in his mind. Who is she? Then, another system message appeared. Name: Oh Yanju, LV33. Trust: 9. Awakened ability: Werbear A. Werbear A. Turns the user into a beast. All physical and regenerative abilities are maximized. The protagonist's breath hitched. She's level 33, and she even has an A rank ability. But then, more system messages flooded his vision. Citizen: Hadongan's trust has reached 50. Loyalty has been unlocked. Citizen: Yuhiren's trust has reached 50. Loyalty has been unlocked. Citizen: Kong Diaksu's loyalty has surpassed 30. He has met all the requirements to be registered as a vassal. The protagonist grinned. Awesome. Opening his system window, he spoke clearly. Register Kong Diaksu as a vassal. A new message appeared. Name: Kong Diaksu, LV25. Title: Third Servant. Trust: 52. Loyalty: 31. Awakened ability: Iron Knight B. Iron Knight B. The the user can summon a halberd and iron armor that covers their entire body. He studied the messages carefully. So, vassal levels are determined by the rank of their awakened ability. He thought back to his other vassals. Choi Hyungjin, Strength of a Gorilla, C, level 20. Kong Deoksu, Iron Knight, B, level 25. Moon Byunggo, Teleport, A, level 30. From the moment they were registered, their levels were set based on their ability rank, but then, a troubling thought entered his mind. Are the ranks of abilities chosen at random? His brows furrowed. Moon Byunggo gained an A rank ability, but Choi Hyungjin, who had higher loyalty, only got a C rank ability. That doesn't make sense, he clenched his fist. If Kong Deoksu got a B rank ability with just 31 loyalty, then there must be another factor at play. A sense of unease settled over him. I need to figure this out. Knowing what determines a high-ranking ability is critical, he exhaled. Not knowing what happens when I register a metahuman as my vassal is a problem then. A new system message appeared. The metahuman is now able to freely move between the stairs, elevators, and corridors. He turned away from the screen and walked toward the elevator. Sometime later, he reached it. Pressing a hand against the door, he activated his ability, Ultimate Eyes. Through the system's vision, he looked at the girl lying unconscious on B2. But he himself was standing on the 30th floor. He turned around and called out, Mr. Choi. Choi, his vassal, looked at him in concern. Yes. The protagonist's gaze lingered on the elevator doors as they slowly began to open. I'd like you to bring the lady on B2. Here, meanwhile, in the stairwell, a group of survivors gathered wires, their gazes drifting toward the mutilated goblin corpses littering the floor. One man murmured, What the hell just happened? A swarm of goblins suddenly charged at us. Another added, Yeah, it's almost like someone caused it. Their leader's expression darkened. That ability, he thought, gripping the wire tightly. I'm certain. His mind flashed back to Mr. Choi's words. He's quite an intriguing person, though, then, Mrs. Choi's voice. It's thanks to the ingredients that Jaehyun gave me. Otherwise, I would have only been able to serve rice and tangerines. The leader narrowed his eyes. This is his ability. His gaze shifted toward one of his men. Byunggo, he had been introverted before. But after meeting Kim Jaehyun, he changed. The leader's hands tightened into fists. His abilities are to be feared, no matter what those abilities were. It all led to the same conclusion. Back on B2, the elevator doors slid open. Mr. Choi rushed out, his footsteps echoing through the hallway. He spotted the unconscious girl. Without hesitation, he moved toward her. From the 30th floor, Kim Jaehyun watched everything. One thing was clear in this damned world. If you weren't chosen by him, you wouldn't survive. If you want to see more parts of this manhwa, make sure to like and comment next. And don't forget to subscribe for the latest updates. A flashback is revealed showing a small toy car. A child was playing with it in a park while being watched. The boy was filled with joy, calling out to his mother to watch what he could do. The woman from the parking lot, Yinju, was his mother. She smiled at him genuinely, encouraging him. As the child stood up and waved to his mother, something appeared behind him. The genuine smile on the mother's face turned into an expression of horror. She froze, overcome with terror. A group of 3 vile goblins surrounded the poor boy, who was innocently waving at his mother. She tried to act, summoning all her strength, but she wasn't fast enough. The goblins attacked the boy, leaving her helpless to stop them. All she could do was weep as the sight of her son's final moments was burned into her memory. All that remained was the toy car the boy had been playing with. Trapped in a nightmare, Yinju suddenly woke up, startled by the painful memories. She looked to her side and saw Seo Jun, who called her by name. He watched her lying down, and she sat up on the bed, her head throbbing. Seo Jun extended his hand and introduced himself, saying it was a pleasure to meet her. Ignoring his introduction, she asked him if he was the one who did it. Surprised, Seo Jun hesitated, unsure what she was referring to. Quickly, she clarified, saying he knew exactly what she meant. The thing that made the goblins' heads explode. Seo Jun froze in a moment of hesitation, and his hand began to tremble. Gripping his hand to steady himself, he admitted that yes, he was the one who had done it. Yinju started thinking, realizing how immensely powerful he must be. Someone with such a neutral expression could wipe out an entire horde of goblins in an instant. Fearful but hopeful, she thought that if he could do something so incredible, then maybe. She began trembling, her thoughts racing. Finally, she begged him, pleading for him to save her child. Through her tears, she cried out, asking him for just one day, just one day to bring her son back. As she finished her plea, Seo Jun looked at her, seeing her face soaked with tears, an expression of unbearable pain. It was the face of someone who had their child ripped away. Still crying, she said she missed her beloved son terribly. Seo Jun clenched his teeth, anger boiling within him as he realized she had lost her son to those wretched goblins. Yinju sobbed so hard, trembling and unable to speak coherently through her hiccups. Seo Jun stood there, frozen, wondering if there was truly nothing he could do. He decided to try issuing a mission through the system. Hunt down 1,000 goblins with no time limit and no penalty for failure. The reward would be the resurrection of her child. Lost in thought, he wondered if such a thing was even possible. The idea filled him with apprehension, but then the system notified him that the mission couldn't be issued. Frustration surged through him as he realized resurrection was beyond his current capabilities. Even with his powers, the system explained further, stating that a resurrection required a tremendous amount of power and resources. Then another notification appeared. There weren't enough funds to cover the resurrection mission's reward. It suggested trying again after increasing his funds. Seo Jun was stunned, his jaw dropping in disbelief as he read the message. Resurrecting someone might actually be possible if he had enough money. Overwhelmed with excitement, Seo Jun shouted at the system, demanding confirmation. Could he truly bring someone back to life if he had the funds? Returning to the room, he saw Yinju still crying. He realized he had no idea how much it might cost to resurrect someone, nor could he even begin to guess. But knowing the possibility existed, he decided to act. He called out to Yinju, who quickly looked up, wiping her tear-filled eyes. With a serious expression, Seo Jun told her that he thought he might be able to help her. He explained that there might be a way to bring her son back. Upon hearing this, Yinju felt a sense of relief, though not a certainty. The idea that there might still be hope offered her comfort. Still crying, she gripped the bedsheet tightly and asked if what he said was truly real or just a cruel joke. Seo Jun reassured her that he would never joke about something so serious. However, he explained that while it was possible, it could not happen just yet, and she nodded in understanding. He added that he didn't know exactly how long it would take, but there was definitely a way. Yinju turned to him, saying she'd do whatever it takes, and asked what she should do to make it possible. Seo Jun considered the situation with Han's group, which now included Moon, Toy, and Fatty. With their awakened abilities, they already had a strong team. Adding Yinju, a level 33 fighter, would make them capable of handling most monsters. He thought the best course of action was to transform all 7 of his minions. Changing his expression to a smile, he asked Yinju to get up, saying he'd introduce her to some people. Shortly after, Han introduced himself, and Yinju politely returned the greeting. She then asked if he was the one who was throwing baseballs to hunt goblins, which startled Han that she knew about that. Yinju also turned to the archer, saying she recognized her too, since she was shooting arrows at the goblins, leaving the archer equally surprised. Nervous, the archer asked how Yinju knew her. Yinju, growling and mimicking claws with her hands and sharp teeth, asked if they really didn't recognize her, saying they'd met before. Toy, the archer, and Han looked confused about her growling, while cute bears appeared in the background. Deciding to clarify, Yinju began transforming gradually. First started appearing on her body. As she focused, her bear form became evident, complete with a snout and brown fur. The archer, shocked, pointed at her and asked if this was actually happening. Now, a massive bear stood in the room before the group. Still pointing, the archer exclaimed that it was the beast they saw in the alley earlier. Yinju, laughing awkwardly, corrected her, saying it was actually a bear, not a beast, leaving the archer dumbfounded. The bear woman explained that she had helped them deal with the goblins a few times before, though they hadn't realized it until now. Looking at the giant bear in front of him, Han remarked that their meeting wasn't a coincidence after all. The bear woman confirmed this, saying that anyone who opposes the goblins is a friend of hers. At that moment, Seo Jun arrived and interrupted their conversation, stating that it was good they were already acquainted. With a serious expression, he said he had something important to announce. Seo Jun explained that after thinking it through, they would execute the plan to rescue Moon's grandmother tomorrow. The group listened intently as he informed them that the number of goblins had drastically decreased, making this the perfect opportunity for the mission. He added that Fatty would sit out this mission due to his injuries and mentioned that he borrowed Fatty's room, as Fatty lost his bed to the BM. Seo Jun then announced that Yinju, the BM, would join them on the mission. She nervously thanked him for the opportunity and said it was a pleasure to meet everyone. Concluding the meeting, Seo Jun told them to prepare for tomorrow morning. The group, filled with determination, agreed to the mission without question. Afterward, Seo Jun called Toy and Moon aside for a private conversation in the hallway, leaving them feeling uneasy. He reassured them not to worry, saying it would only take a moment. Under the full moon in the hallway, Seo Jun asked if they knew why he had called them there. Both Toy and Moon looked startled, unsure of what he was referring to, though, deep down, they might have an idea. The sudden question caught Toy and Moon off guard, leaving them visibly startled. Toy hesitated and admitted he wasn't sure, while Moon spoke up, asking if it had something to do with the powers they had recently acquired. Jun smirked sarcastically and replied, "Yes, it's about your powers." He went on to explain that both of them had awakened abilities, leaving them shocked at how perceptive their leader was. June elaborated further, revealing that Moon's newly obtained ability was teleportation. This revelation excited Moon, who was eager to learn how to use it. As for Toy, his ability was named Knight of Steel, which left him curious about what it could do. June's expression shifted to one of seriousness as he considered the situation. He realized he needed to understand how both of their abilities worked before embarking on the mission the next day. Deep in thought, June opened the system screen to analyze their progress. He issued a mission to both of them: demonstrate their newly awakened abilities within 1 hour. The reward for success was increased strength, while the penalty for failure was having to sleep in the corridor. The system confirmed the mission parameters, and June found himself intrigued by these team-oriented challenges. As June mulled over the situation, Toy, unable to contain his enthusiasm, called out, asking if it was true that he had awakened a new ability. June confirmed with a nod. Toy's excitement was palpable. Snorting with exhilaration, he exclaimed how great it was, but then asked about the Knight of Steel ability, curious about its specific capabilities. June explained that it allowed Toy to summon a steel suit of armor and a halberd. Before Toy could ask further questions, since he was used to wielding a baseball bat, a blue light suddenly materialized beside him. The light was Moon's teleportation ability activating. In an instant, Moon vanished, leaving Toy stunned by how quickly he had picked up the skill. For a few seconds, June and Toy exchanged wide-eyed, speechless glances, both trying to process what had just happened. Moments later, Moon reappeared in the corridor, slightly wobbly as he landed. Looking down at his hands, Moon's face lit up with excitement as he marveled at the functionality of his power. Clenching his fist, he declared, "With this power, rescuing my grandmother will be a breeze." The system notified June that Moon's confidence had increased, along with a rise in his loyalty. Overcome with gratitude, Moon bowed deeply to June, thanking him for everything he was doing. The gesture took June by surprise. After a moment, June urged Moon to pause and carefully assess the situation. "Even though you've managed to use your powers," June explained, "going to your grandmother's house right now is impossible." Moon, puzzled, asked why that was the case. June patiently elaborated that there was no guarantee Moon could fully control his ability. "Even though it worked once, it's possible you just got lucky," June said, causing Moon to lower his head in disappointment at the realization that rescuing his grandmother would have to wait. June reassured him, saying, "For now, we'll figure out the maximum range of your teleportation and determine if there's any penalty for using it multiple times." Moon nodded silently in agreement. As the conversation continued, they noticed something unusual happening down the corridor. Turning to investigate, they saw a figure clad in gleaming steel armor, wielding an enormous halberd. Toy's eyes widened in amazement as he realized the sheer magnitude of his power. Ecstatic, he couldn't help but comment on how well the ability suited him. The system then notified June that Toy's confidence and loyalty had also increased. While Toy celebrated, swinging the halberd to test its weight, June called Moon over. Pointing toward a nearby building, June asked if Moon could test his teleportation by attempting to reach it. Moon studied the building carefully, gauging the distance and calculating the effort it would take to make such a leap on only his second try. Finally, he turned to his leader and said, "I'm not sure I can make it, but I'll try." The system presented a new mission: teleport to the rooftop of Building 113 within 3 minutes. The reward was an improvement to Moon's teleportation ability, while the penalty for failure was having to sleep outside. Focusing intensely, Moon positioned his hands in a stance resembling a Kamehameha to channel his energy for teleportation. In the background, Toy cheered him on enthusiastically, offering words of encouragement and telling him he could do it. After aligning his thoughts and gathering his energy, Moon opened his eyes. In that instant, he vanished once again, enveloped by a burst of blue light. The force of his ability was so intense that Toy instinctively shielded himself from the shockwave. Moon reappeared on the rooftop of the other building, landing in a dramatic superhero pose. However, his face contorted in pain, and his eyes turned completely white. From his new vantage point, Moon felt a wave of relief knowing the teleportation had worked. Looking across at his friends, he waved to ensure they saw him and shouted that everything went as planned. The system notified June, confirming that Moon had successfully completed the mission. June let out a sigh of relief and smiled, praising Moon for his impressive and quick mastery of the ability. Moon, still waving happily, basked in the moment. But suddenly, without warning, Moon's strength gave out. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed unconscious on the rooftop, leaving him vulnerable. Both June and Toy froze in shock, their previous excitement quickly replaced by concern. Acting swiftly, June used his ability to summon a servant, bringing Moon's unconscious body back to their corridor. Moments later, they laid Moon down in one of the beds to let him recover. "Is he going to be okay?" Toy asked anxiously. June, studying the system's readout, reassured him. "Guess he's just unconscious. The teleportation ability took a lot out of him." He explained that with enough rest, Moon would be fine. The system confirmed that Moon was healthy and in a deep sleep. June added, "This probably happened because he's not used to using the ability yet." Relieved, Toy sighed and said he was glad to hear it. June then shifted the focus. "Now it's your turn," he said, surprising Toy with the sudden declaration. "Wait, my turn?" Toy asked, caught off guard. The system displayed Toy's mission: perform 100 push-ups and 100 squats while wearing the steel armor. The time limit was 10 minutes, and the reward was increased strength. The penalty for failure? Sleeping outside. Without hesitation, Toy began the exercises. Starting with the push-ups, clad in his heavy steel armor, every movement required an incredible amount of effort. Sweat poured down his face and dripped onto the floor as he pushed himself to the limit. Determined, he moved on to the squats, completing the second half of the mission with gritted teeth and unwavering resolve. When he finished, Toy stood tall, exhausted but triumphant, shouting, "Mission accomplished. I did it." The system confirmed his success, notifying June that Toy had completed the mission. Breathing heavily, Toy leaned against the wall to catch his breath while June observed him, impressed. With a body like his, so athletic and resilient, it's no wonder he has such endurance, June thought to himself. Suddenly, the system displayed a new message, something June had never seen before. "What's this?" June muttered, his eyes narrowing at the unexpected notification. As he studied the screen, Toy asked, "Is that really all for the mission?" June nodded, smiling warmly. "Yes, great job. You can go rest now." The system finished calculating and displayed a notification. Toy's strength had slightly increased. Turning to June, Toy expressed his gratitude. "Thanks for taking the time to help us. I really appreciate it." June, surprised by the sudden notification and watching Toy feel the changes in his body, noticed a new sense of energy radiating from him. Looking at his own hands, Toy clenched them into fists, feeling the power coursing through his veins. "This reward changes everything," he said with a confident smile. The next day, somewhere in a dark alley in Busan, Han screamed in desperation, urging everyone to run. The group scattered, fleeing for their lives as a ferocious horde of goblins pursued them. Toy, however, stopped running and turned around, his fury evident. Assessing the situation, he decided to act. The goblins, focused on their chase, were suddenly blinded by a brilliant light shining in front of them. As they adjusted their vision, they saw a towering figure clad in a steel suit of armor wielding a massive halberd. Without hesitation, Toy charged forward and struck the nearest goblin, impaling it with his halberd in one swift, powerful motion. Then, he unleashed a flurry of diagonal strikes in rapid succession, cutting down goblins one after another. But the goblins, fueled by rage, refused to give up and surged forward with a determined attack. Expecting a direct assault, Toy braced himself, but the goblins cunningly outmaneuvered him, slipping past to target the more vulnerable backline. In an instant, arrows struck the goblins' heads in swift succession, ending their rampage permanently. Toy turned to see what had happened and spotted Moon wielding a bow and arrow. "Don't worry," Moon called out confidently. "I'll handle any goblins that get past you. Focus on the ones ahead." Gripping his halberd tightly, Toy turned back to the remaining goblins. A smirk spread across his face as he responded, "Got it?" Seeing Toy's renewed focus, the goblins froze, hesitating in their attack. One by one, they began to retreat, turning back to where they came from. Frustrated, Toy yelled at them to come back and face him. As the goblins retreated, terror gripped them when a massive shadow appeared before them. It was the bear girl, her glowing red eyes piercing through the chaos. This was her dramatic first appearance, emerging from an ambush prepared for the retreating goblins. The goblins had no choice but to surrender to their fate, collapsing in despair and lamenting their past misdeeds. The group showed no mercy. Moon's arrows flew with precision, Toy's halberd struck powerfully, and the bear girl slashed through the goblins with her razor-sharp claws. Together, they defeated the goblins one by one. Seizing the opportunity, Han shouted to Moon, "Now's your chance. Go." Understanding the urgency, Moon broke into a sprint toward his grandmother's house. "Thank you, Han," he called back as he ran, grateful for the opening created by his comrades. Meanwhile, the system notified June that Moon had completed his mission. A pop-up appeared, stating that it was now evaluating the missions Moon had completed. Back in the comfort of his room, June sat with his Ultimate Eyes ability activated, observing the system's screen while slurping on cup noodles. The system pinged again, declaring the evaluation complete and awarding him 132,133 points. The system chimed again, confirming that Moon had completed all the missions available to him for the day. It also announced it would begin evaluating the rewards for Moon's completed tasks. The assessment concluded instantly. Still savoring his noodles, June grinned and said, "All right, let's see what the reward is." The system congratulated him for hitting the jackpot. For those unfamiliar, It clarified that a jackpot is the maximum prize accumulated in games of chance like slot machines or lotteries. Reading this, June froze momentarily, stunned. Paralyzed with anticipation, he stared at the screen, waiting to see what incredible reward the jackpot would bring. Still staring at the system notification, June remained frozen in shock, his cup noodles stuck in his throat as he tried to process what the jackpot could possibly be. Then, the system displayed the reward, a skill point granted as part of the jackpot. Upon reading this, June's lips curled into a satisfied smile. This was perfect. He could choose exactly where to use the point. Back on the streets, Moon sprinted toward his grandmother's house at such an incredible speed that a faint blue aura trailed behind him. As he drew closer, exhaustion crept in, sweat dripping down his forehead, his mind racing with anxious thoughts. What if something had happened to her? Upon arrival, the house came into view, a small, simple home completely unprotected against monster attacks. There were no barriers, no fortifications, just an ordinary house standing vulnerably amidst the chaos. Moon didn't hesitate. He rushed to the door and pushed it open, but a deep fear clawed at his chest. Frantically, he dashed through the house, checking every room as he called out, "Grandma, where are you?" Then, he reached the bedroom, and his eyes widened in shock. There she was, lying on a futon mattress, peacefully asleep. Far calmer than Moon had ever imagined she would be. Cautiously, he approached, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Grandma," he whispered, shaking her lightly, hoping for any sign of response. Slowly, her eyelids fluttered open, her voice faint and drowsy as she murmured, "Who is there?" She reached out, her frail fingers brushing against his hand. "Moon, is that you?" And at that moment, some ninja must have been cutting onions nearby, because Moon's vision blurred as he choked up, his chest tightening with overwhelming relief. Tears streamed down his face, his body trembling as he sobbed uncontrollably, overwhelmed by the sheer relief that she was still alive. Unable to hold back, he threw his arms around her in a warm, desperate embrace, whispering apologies between his sobs. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm so sorry it took me so long to come back for you." Despite his tears, the old woman smiled kindly and patted his back. "You're such a brave and kind boy, Moon. I knew you would come for me." At that exact moment, a system notification appeared in front of June. Moon's loyalty had reached 100. Moon was now officially registered as a vassal, and the number of available vassal slots had increased. June squinted at the system window in confusion. What's this? Apparently, reaching a certain level of trust unlocked an additional vassal slot. The system then displayed his current vassals: Choi Hyen, aka Fatty, level 20, Moon, level 30, and Kong Daiku, aka Toy, level 25. Scratching his chin, June was taken aback. Wait, so I can level them up too? Curious, he decided to check how much it would cost to upgrade Moon's level. He tapped the plus symbol next to Moon's name. A new notification popped up: insufficient funds to level up. Then, another window appeared, showing the required amount: 100 million won is needed to upgrade Vassal Moon to the next level. June's jaw nearly hit the floor. His hands clenched into fists. 100 million won. His face twisted in frustration as he rubbed his temples. That's insane. Just for one vassal? With a sigh, he ran a hand through his hair and lightly punched the table. "I'm sorry, Moon," he muttered under his breath. "I'll make it up to you by assigning you missions every single day." At that moment, a noise snapped June out of his thoughts, his senses going on high alert. The elevator was moving. His brow furrowed. Who the hell could that be? His comrades were still out in the streets, fighting goblins. Narrowing his eyes, he activated Ultimate Eyes. His pupils darkened as his vision extended, scanning the entire building. Two people stood outside one of the apartment doors, a man and a woman. The man carried a box on his shoulder while the woman knocked on the door, asking if anyone was inside. Something felt off. Their expressions weren't exactly friendly, and their dark under-eye circles hinted at exhaustion, or something more sinister. June immediately recognized the apartment. Inside was Fatty's wife. From the other side of the door, she hesitated upon hearing the knocking and voices. Cautiously, she called out, "Who is it?" Assuming it was urgent, she made a quick decision and opened the door. Standing there was the young woman who greeted her with a bright smile. "Hello," she said cheerfully. "I'm Kim Dabin." Then, she gestured toward the man beside her. "And this is my younger brother, Kim Miho," she continued, mentioning that they lived in Unit 1701. Intrigued, Fatty's wife asked what brought them there. The girl sighed, explaining that she had come because she desperately needed help, leaving Fatty's wife wondering what kind of help she could possibly need. Then, with a sudden burst of desperation, the girl blurted out, practically shouting, "Would it be possible for you to let me take a shower?" Fatty's wife was completely caught off guard. Her jaw dropped. Of all the things she had expected to hear, this was the absolute last. Still trying to process it, She blinked in disbelief and asked if she had heard correctly. Did you really just ask to take a shower? And that's all you need? The girl nodded eagerly. Yes, that's all. I just want a shower. Relieved that the request wasn't anything too complicated, Fatty's wife let out a small chuckle and waved them inside. Well, that's easy enough. Come in. The two entered, expressing their gratitude. The man, still carrying the box on his shoulder, also thanked her before asking where he should put it. Curious, Fatty's wife asked what was inside. As he placed it down on the floor, the girl, still grateful, explained that it was just canned food and some miscellaneous supplies. The man opened the box, revealing various types of canned goods, exactly as she had said. Seeing this, Fatty's wife smiled and thanked them, mentioning that they really didn't have to go through all that trouble. The girl waved it off. It's nothing, really. If you think about it, I just walked into a stranger's house and made a pretty weird request. Just as she finished speaking, something caught her attention from the corner of her eye. She turned her head slightly, her gaze landing on the collection of bows lined up against the wall alongside Toy's baseball bat. Curious, she couldn't help but ask, do these bows and that bat belong to the owner of this apartment? Fatty's wife wasn't expecting that question. Still, after a brief pause, she shook her head. No, actually, these don't belong to the apartment's owner. The real owners live in another unit, but it's kind of a complicated situation to explain in just a few words. The girl nods in understanding. I see. Watching everything unfold, Ko-jun deactivates his ability and thinks to himself that so far, they don't seem like bad people. He then shifts his gaze toward the window and murmurs, I'll go check it out later. After a brief moment of thought, he adds, I also need to talk to them. I want to ask if they'd be willing to help rescue other survivors from the nearby apartments. Before he can dwell on it further, a sudden system notification pops up. June blinks in surprise as the message appears before him. You have successfully hunted a red tiger. A second notification follows immediately after. You have gained a large amount of XP. Then another, 39,718,318 XP earned. Abilities pushed to their limit despite the strain. Outside, the battlefield is far from calm. Han the archer and the guy with glasses are both lightly wounded. In front of them, the corpse of a massive red tiger lies motionless on the ground, and next to it, the werbear is also severely injured, struggling to move. The rest of the group stands frozen, unsure of what to do next. June observes everything, but a strange feeling creeps up on him. His stomach twists, and his chest tightens as a wave of unease washes over him. What the hell just happened? Suddenly, a sharp pain shoots through his body. His muscles spasm, cold sweat dripping down his face as an overwhelming pressure grips his chest. He groans in agony, barely able to keep himself upright. Then the system sends another notification. You have discovered individuals who are eligible to receive citizenship. Through the pain, June barely manages to process the message. There are still people who aren't citizens yet? His breathing is ragged, but he forces himself to speak. System, grant them citizenship. A new notification appears instantly, and a list of names flashes across the screen. Citizenship has been granted. Then another alert. You have officially reached 50 citizens. An additional message follows. The amount of XP and money that citizens can earn has increased by 100%, but the surprises don't stop there. A final notification appears. As the number of citizens has reached a specific threshold, all citizens have unlocked a new ability, Power of Trust. June stares at the words, mind racing. Power of Trust? What does that even mean? Despite his lingering confusion, his thoughts drift back to the battlefield. He clenches his jaw. Did anyone get seriously hurt? Back on the streets, Moon is slightly injured and gasping for breath, making a tremendous effort as he carries his grandmother on his back. Everyone else is also wounded, running desperately while providing cover for Toy, who is carrying the injured werbear woman. Observing this, June quickly realizes that the situation outside is far worse than he had imagined. And of all people to be seriously hurt, it had to be the werbear. As the group races to escape, a horde of goblins suddenly appears right in front of the two carrying the wounded. The team members covering them from behind immediately let loose a volley of arrows, striking down goblins to clear a path. The archer, watching closely, is startled by the precision of the man with glasses. How the hell did you pull that off with a single shot? She asks, eyes wide. The man looks just as confused. I honestly have no idea. As they continue running, the archer suddenly realizes something. For some reason, my body feels lighter. Han, running beside her, nods in agreement. Yeah, and I just noticed. I'm not even out of breath anymore. Meanwhile, back with June, the system finally provides an explanation. The ability Power of Trust is a passive skill that increases all stats by X%, where X equals the trust level of each citizen. Ko-jun stares at the message in disbelief. This skill didn't even exist before. How the hell is it so strong? Then another realization hits him. Every single member of his group has at least 50 trust points or more. This means that all their stats, including stamina, strength, reflexes, and more, have naturally increased by 50%. At that very moment, Moon's expression shifts, as if something suddenly clicks in his mind. He has a hunch. This must be another one of June's new abilities. The system then notifies June of something else. Both of the girls have now surpassed 30 loyalty points. As a result, they are now eligible to be registered as vassals. Without hesitation, Kim immediately commands the system to register both of them. The moment it happens, the two women suddenly stop in their tracks, their bodies tingling as an overwhelming power surges through them. The system follows up with an update. Kim Gang, now at level 20, has acquired the skill Piercing, while Yuyan, now at level 25, has awakened the skill Poisonous Mist. Now brimming with their newfound power, the two turn back, ready to face the goblins chasing them. The archer steadies herself, drawing her bow. She fires an arrow straight at the goblins. Normally, her shots always land as headshots every single time. But this time, something is different. The arrow doesn't just pierce through one goblin. It ricochets off and strikes several others, piercing through them effortlessly. Confused, the archer furrows her brows. What the hell? What just happened? The system promptly provides an answer. The ability Piercing is a tier S skill that uses mental strength to fire a penetrating arrow. June, standing with his arms crossed, watches as the information unfolds before him. Now that he knows what the ability is, he immediately issues a command to the system: create a mission. A new quest pops up. The archer must use Piercing to hunt 10 goblins within a 10-minute time limit. Reward: increased Piercing proficiency. Penalty for failure: fatigue. As he processes this, June shifts his attention to the other ability. Unlike Piercing, this one seems far trickier. Poisonous Mist is a deadly attack, and while it's classified as a B rank skill, using it incorrectly could endanger the entire team. June exhales sharply, deciding to deal with it later. I'll figure it out when the time comes. Just then, the system sends another notification. The archer has successfully completed the mission. 10 goblins eliminated. A new message follows. The maximum number of missions available for today has been reached. Evaluating. June sighs, unimpressed. The rewards weren't that great this time. But now that the battle outside has settled, he decides it's time to check on the citizens living on the lower floors. Activating Ultimate Eyes, he scans the corridors. His gaze locks onto the silhouette of a man walking calmly through the halls, his hands tucked into his pockets. June watches as the man heads toward the bathroom, likely to collect water. Smart, June notes. This man has good survival instincts. He's gathering water before supplies run low. Shifting his focus elsewhere, June spots another pair. A man and a woman sitting together, preparing to eat. He observes them for a moment, realizing something important. They're already capable of gathering food and water on their own. Then, in another part of the building, something unexpected catches his eye: a woman. She's lying motionless on the floor inside a room. Without a second thought, June bolts toward her. The system immediately provides an update. Kim De-young. Trust level: 18. Ability: Healing awakened. June's heart pounds in his chest. Healing. His eyes dart between the system message and the unconscious woman on the floor. He reads the ability description. She can heal wounds. A surge of urgency floods through him. She's the first healer they've found, and they desperately need her. Without hesitation, June sprints forward. He has to help her, no matter what. Sprinting through the hallways, June finally arrives at the door of the room where the woman had collapsed. His breathing remains heavy from the run, but he quickly composes himself and reaches for the doorknob. Slowly, he attempts to turn it, hoping for an easy entry, but to his surprise, the door is locked from the inside. A deep frown settles on his face as he realizes there's no way to open it from the outside. Frustration creeps in, his shoulders slumping slightly as he steps back, contemplating another course of action. However, before he can decide, something unexpected happens. His eyes widen momentarily as a new notification from the system appears before him. By sheer coincidence, or perhaps fate itself, he has just acquired a new skill. The system promptly displays its details. The ability is called Invisible Hand, currently at level 1. According to its description, it allows him to summon and control an invisible hand at will. Reading the notification, a surge of newfound determination fills his chest. His grip tightens into fists as he mentally acknowledges the absurd but undeniable reality of his newfound power. Silently, he expresses gratitude for this sudden stroke of fortune. Closing his eyes for a brief moment, June focuses entirely on the locked door before him, visualizing the lock breaking, willing it to yield under his command. When he finally opens his eyes, an unexpected yet welcomed sight greets him. Right before him, materialized from sheer energy, is a lock-breaking tool. A sturdy bolt cutter formed entirely of the same strange energy he has come to rely on. Without hesitation, he reaches forward, taking hold of the newly formed tool. The cold sensation in his grip confirms its existence. Without wasting another second, he positions it against the lock and applies pressure. A sharp snap echoes through the quiet hallway as the lock gives way effortlessly. Swiftly, he pushes the door open and rushes inside. The moment he steps into the dimly lit room, his gaze immediately lands on the unmoving woman lying on the floor. Now that he sees her up close, the eerie stillness of her body makes the scene unsettling. June quickly kneels beside her, concern evident in his expression. Reaching out, he gently nudges her shoulder, his voice calm yet firm as he asks if she can hear him, if she is all right, urging her to wake up. No response. A deep sense of unease washes over him as he carefully observes her condition, scanning for visible injuries. However, what he notices sends a wave of worry through him. Her face is unnaturally pale, her lips dry and cracked. Severe dehydration. His mind races. Dehydration this extreme could be dangerous. She needs help immediately. He quickly shifts his attention to the surroundings, searching for anything that might assist in stabilizing her condition. His eyes dart around the room, taking in every detail. Then, something catches his attention. Something that makes him pause, confusion flickering across his face. There is water in the room. Yet, despite its presence, she is still in this critical state. It makes no sense. The contradiction unsettles him, sending a cold shiver down his spine. Glancing back at the woman, he forces himself to push aside the troubling thoughts. Now is not the time to question the situation. The priority is saving her. A sudden idea forms in his mind. Without hesitation, he opens the system interface. There is a chance this might work. June quickly assigns her a mission, a simple yet crucial task. Mission objective: breathe. Reward: immediate recovery from dehydration. The system processes the command, deducting 1 as the cost for activating the mission. Almost instantly, a soft blue aura begins to envelop the woman's body. June watches intently, his pulse quickening as the energy works through her. Then, faint sounds escape her lips. A weak, breathy noise, but a clear sign she is beginning to stir. Relief floods through him. It worked. Slowly, her eyelids flutter open, her gaze hazy and unfocused. A blurred silhouette of a figure stands before her, a voice reaching her ears, asking if she is awake. Her mind struggles to process the situation. Her voice, weak but laced with confusion, manages to form a question. Who is he, and why is he in her room? June straightens slightly, meeting her dazed gaze. He introduces himself, explaining that he lives in a unit just above hers in the building. She blinks, her expression still foggy with exhaustion. The information doesn't seem to register right away. Still lying on the floor, she questions him again, her voice laced with uncertainty. How did he get inside? Seeing no reason to hide the truth, June states it plainly. He tells her he saw she was unwell and decided to enter by force, breaking the door open to reach her. A moment of silence lingers between them. Then, her breath hitches. Her expression shifts as realization dawns. Without warning, tears begin streaming down her face. Yet, she says nothing. She simply cries, as if the weight of everything she had been enduring had finally caught up with her. She raises her hands to her face, wiping away the tears in an attempt to hide her crying. Her shoulders tremble slightly as she struggles to compose herself. June, watching her closely, immediately senses that something is wrong. There is an uneasiness in the way she reacts, something beyond just exhaustion or confusion. Taking a deep breath, June calls her name, Kim De-young, his voice firm yet gentle. As she slowly pushes herself up from the floor, still visibly shaken, he speaks again, apologizing for being so abrupt, for barging into her life so suddenly. However, he makes it clear that he needs her help. There is urgency in his tone, something that makes her pause despite her lingering distress. Now sitting upright, her tear-filled eyes meet his. Though her expression remains guarded, her lips, still cracked from dehydration, barely part as she listens to him speak. June wastes no time in explaining. One of his allies is severely injured. The words take a moment to register. De-young slowly turns her body toward him, staring as if trying to process what he just said. Silence stretches between them. She blinks, her mind racing, trying to make sense of his words. His ally? Someone severely injured? Why is he telling her this? She doesn't understand. She doesn't even know this man. Panic begins to rise in her chest. He wants her to save someone. But why her? Doubt and fear intertwine within her thoughts, her hands trembling slightly as she lowers them to her lap. It seems impossible, an absurd request thrown at her out of nowhere. He's putting his faith in the wrong person. And then, another realization strikes her like a bolt of lightning. How does he know she's a nurse? Her breath catches. She has never told him that. No one in this building should even know. A wave of unease washes over her. Yet, at the same time, something about the way he speaks, the way he asks for help, doesn't feel threatening. There is no malice in his words, no ill intent in his eyes. Still hesitant, still uncertain, she makes a decision. She has to see for herself. Slowly, she turns to face him completely. Though suspicion lingers in her gaze, she swallows down her doubts and agrees to help. Her voice, though weak, carries a firm resolve as she asks where exactly she is supposed to go. June doesn't answer right away. Instead, he opens the system interface, his fingers moving swiftly across the translucent screen in front of him. He asks her to wait just a moment. He assigns her a mission, one that instructs her to use healing magic to cure the wounded werbear. The mission comes with a 1-hour time limit, a reward labeled as improved, and, to his relief, no penalties. His eyes flicker with determination as he reads the details. He must save the werbear, no matter what. Turning back to De Young, he tells her that, for now, she should rest. He will personally bring the injured person to her. He then instructs her to find something to help with her own dehydration. But De Young, already overwhelmed, barely has time to process his words before something utterly impossible happens. From seemingly nowhere, oranges begin to materialize in midair. Her eyes widen in pure shock, her breath hitching as she watches several bright oranges fall from the void and land in front of her. For a long moment, she simply stares, her mouth slightly open, completely stunned. Then, snapping out of her daze, she frantically raises a shaking finger, pointing at the fruit on the floor. What is this? Her voice trembles as she demands an answer. June, realizing how bizarre this must seem to her, quickly apologizes. But De Young isn't satisfied. Her heartbeat pounds in her ears as she watches more oranges drop into existence. Where are these coming from? How is this happening? What kind of person is this man? Before she can demand further explanations, June simply turns his back to her. A slight smirk plays on his lips as he tells her he'll explain everything later, once things have calmed down. And with that, he walks away, leaving her still kneeling on the floor, still staring in disbelief. He exits the room with a final request. He reminds her that she is still weak, that her body needs to recover, and he asks, no, insists, that she prioritize her own rest. As soon as June is gone, De Young lowers her gaze to the scattered oranges. Slowly, she reaches out, picking one up. The texture, the weight, the coolness against her fingertips, it all feels real. She squeezes the fruit gently, expecting it to vanish like an illusion, but it remains solid in her grasp. A shiver runs down her spine. What is this? Still overwhelmed, she hesitantly mutters to herself, wondering if she's dreaming, because never in her life has she seen anything like this before. Meanwhile, June wastes no time. He rushes back to his shut-in apartment, moving with quick, determined strides. His mind is already focused on helping his allies outside as fast as possible. The system chimes with a notification. The healer's trust level has increased. He stops for a brief moment, narrowing his eyes at the message. She hadn't trusted him before, that much was obvious. But now, it seems like her perception of him has changed, even if only slightly. Still, it isn't enough for him to let his guard down. Trust takes time, and honestly, he can't blame her. If someone broke into his home out of nowhere, he wouldn't trust them either. Shaking his head, he steps onto the balcony, his gaze drifting downward. His thoughts remain heavy, but as he looks out toward the streets below, something makes his entire body freeze. His blood runs cold. A massive, ferocious red tiger is charging through the streets, its powerful limbs propelling it forward with terrifying speed. And it's chasing his allies. June's breath catches as he sees his companions below, running for their lives. Desperation is evident in the way they scramble to escape, but the monstrous beast is closing in on them, its deadly fangs gleaming under the dim light. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, its piercing eyes lock onto its targets, its muscular body moving in perfect synchrony as it hunts his team. A wave of panic washes over June. This isn't just a dangerous situation. This is a massacre waiting to happen. June stood frozen in shock as he took in the sight before him. There wasn't just one red tiger. Another had appeared. A second ferocious beast separate from the one that had already fought the war bear woman and left her gravely wounded. Down below, chaos continued to unfold. The massive red tiger prowled menacingly, striking fear into the hearts of the remaining group members, who were now running desperately, not daring to look back. Fear gripped them entirely, their survival instincts pushing them forward. Amidst the frantic escape, Hyren, the girl who had received the power of poison, misstepped. Her foot twisted unnaturally, and pain exploded through her leg as she collapsed onto the hard ground. A sharp, involuntary cry of agony tore from her throat. Both the archer woman and Han immediately stopped in their tracks, their faces contorted with panic, their eyes darting back to her, calling out her name with pure desperation. Gritting her teeth, Hyren struggled to push herself up, trying to fight through the pain, but her body was already beyond exhaustion, her limbs heavy, refusing to obey her will. No matter how much she willed herself to move, she couldn't. The archer woman's voice rang out through the air, a raw scream of distress, because the enormous red tiger was already preparing to strike. Its muscles coiled, eyes locked onto Hyrin like a predator savoring its helpless prey, ready to devour her. Its powerful body lunged forward just as she finally managed to stagger back onto her feet, but she had yet to realize how dangerously close the beast truly was. Her mind was occupied by something else, perhaps a last-ditch plan or sheer disbelief at her predicament. Then, at last, she turned her head, and in that instant, she understood. The beast was right there. The realization hit her like a tidal wave, crashing down and swallowing her whole. A cruel truth settled into her bones. There was no escape. For a brief, soul-crushing moment, she stopped resisting. The fight drained from her eyes, and she surrendered to the inevitable. She stood still, bracing for the end, waiting for the red tiger's jaws to clamp down and rip her apart. And then, in a sudden flash of light and violet smoke, she was gone. The tiger's gaping maw snapped shut on empty air. A growl rumbled deep in its throat, confusion flickering through its burning eyes. It didn't understand what had just happened. A heartbeat ago, its prey had been right there, and now vanished. The frustration of the failed kill sent the beast into a deeper fury. At the same moment, Hyrin reappeared, disoriented, drenched in sweat, her breath ragged and uneven. Her mind reeled as she tried to comprehend what had just occurred. Had she died? Was this the afterlife? Pain surged through her limbs, sharp and unrelenting, reminding her that she was still very much alive. That was when she saw him, Jay. He was standing there, watching her closely. It had been too close, a fraction of a second later, and she wouldn't have survived. The weight of that realization pressed down on him. Hyrin, still trembling, looked up at him, but no words came. She was too exhausted, too overwhelmed to speak. Meanwhile, outside, the others were still running for their lives. June took a deep breath, his mind racing. At the very least, he had bought them some time. One less person in immediate danger meant the group below had a slightly better chance of escaping. Then, his system screen flashed with a new notification. He had discovered individuals who met the criteria to be granted citizenship. The system prompted him. Did he wish to approve their citizenship? Before he could process this, another sudden movement caught his eye. Moon appeared, using his teleportation ability to warp into the apartment, carrying his grandmother in his arms. As soon as he landed, he turned to June, his expression frantic, his breathing unsteady, but his grip on the elderly woman remained firm as he pleaded for June to take care of her. June glanced at Moon, then at the woman in his arms. The concern in Moon's eyes was unmistakable, but June's mind was already occupied with something far more urgent. Raising a hand, he told Moon to wait. There was a bigger problem right now. Moon parted his lips, ready to argue, ready to demand an explanation, but then he looked at June's face, at the seriousness in his expression, and he understood. Whatever June was dealing with, it was far worse than he had realized. Without another word, Moon nodded. He could tell that at this moment, his grandmother was not the priority. Down below, the relentless red tiger was still in pursuit, refusing to let up. It chased the remaining group members without mercy, its predatory instincts fully awakened. June clenched his fists, forcing himself to focus. He needed to act. Activating his new ability, Invisible Hand, he made a decision. That tiger needed to die, and he had to find a way to kill it. Down in the streets, Archer, Han, and Togi, who was still carrying the injured werbear, kept running. But no matter how hard they pushed themselves, the red tiger was catching up. Han risked a glance over his shoulder, his stomach twisting with dread. If this continued, they were all going to be devoured. He had to do something. Instinct took over. Without a second thought, Han skidded to a stop, planting his foot firmly on the ground. His fingers tightened around one of his baseballs, his heart pounding in his chest as he raised his arm, channeling everything he had into one throw. A faint blue glow began to radiate around him, intensifying with each passing second. He poured everything into it. Then, he hurled the ball with all the force he could muster. It soared through the air, cutting through the night like a bullet. For a moment, hope flickered. Maybe, just maybe, it would hit. But in the blink of an eye, the tiger dodged. The ball shot past it, colliding uselessly with the ground. A low, guttural growl rumbled through the air. Then, the red tiger threw back its head and roared. A deafening sound that reverberated through the city streets, a declaration of its dominance. The archer's voice rang out in terror as she screamed for Han, begging him to run, but it was too late. The red tiger, eyes gleaming with lethal intent, lunged at him, teeth bared, claws outstretched. Han gritted his teeth, knowing he was out of time. There was nothing he could do to stop it, but there was one thing he could still do, a single, desperate choice. He turned his head and shouted for his friends to keep running. Then, without hesitation, he broke into a full sprint in the opposite direction. If he could lead the tiger away, even if it cost him his life, then at least the others might make it out alive. His chest heaved, his legs burned, every step fueled by sheer willpower, but deep down, he knew this could be the end for him. And still, he ran. As he approached a parking lot, hoping against all odds that goblins or some other kind of monster would appear to distract the red tiger, Han continued to run with all the strength he had left. But once again, the relentless beast was far too close behind him. It was undeniable now. This was truly the end for him. While sprinting, he risked a glance over his shoulder, his breath catching in his throat as he took in the sight of the enormous, glistening fangs of the red tiger. They were massive, sharp, and deadly, a testament to the inevitable doom that awaited him. At that moment, his gaze locked with the tiger's, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. This was it. There was no escape. His fate was sealed. Just when all hope seemed lost, when every fiber of his being prepared to accept his tragic demise, something unexpected happened. A strange, pulsating purple force suddenly materialized and coiled tightly around the red tiger's neck. It appeared out of nowhere, wrapping around the beast with a speed and intensity that defied comprehension. In an instant, the force pulled downward with such overwhelming strength that the tiger's head was violently slammed into the ground. The impact was so powerful that the very pavement beneath him cracked and shattered, sending debris flying in every direction. The tiger let out a guttural snarl of frustration, struggling against the mysterious force. Its powerful limbs instinctively clawed at the ground, attempting to regain stability, but the unseen energy was relentless. Slowly, its paws began to lift off the ground, its body suspended as if an invisible hand were hoisting it up. The purple force continued to constrict, tightening mercilessly around the tiger's throat, squeezing the life out of the monstrous creature. It was unmistakable. This wasn't a natural occurrence. This was someone's doing. And Han, still frozen in shock from witnessing the impossible, knew exactly whose work this was. There was no doubt in his mind. This was June's power. Moments later, the archer woman and the bespectacled man arrived at the scene, their breaths ragged from the exhausting chase. They had rushed there, fearing for Han's safety, but what they found left them momentarily speechless. Their eyes widened in disbelief as they beheld the red tiger, still writhing in agony, its body dangling helplessly as the mysterious force continued to choke the life out of it. As the archer took in the scene, a system screen suddenly appeared before her, glowing softly in the dim light. She hesitated for a brief moment before focusing her attention on the text displayed before her. Her expression shifted almost instantly, her eyes widened in shock as she absorbed the information. Then, as though gaining a newfound sense of understanding, she took a deep breath, regaining her composure. With a newfound calmness, she turned to her companions and, without hesitation, stepped forward. High above, watching the events unfold from his vantage point, June observed everything with sharp, calculating eyes. There was no need for him to intervene any further. He had already done what was necessary. Now, as long as Gang the Archer landed the final blow, he would receive 4 times the loot. Below, the red tiger, still trapped and gasping for air, thrashed desperately in a futile attempt to escape, but its fate was already sealed. The archer, understanding the significance of this moment, took her time preparing what would be her most crucial shot yet. The tiger's fiery gaze turned to her, desperation evident in its glowing eyes. It was pleading for mercy, seeking even the faintest glimmer of hope for survival. But the woman standing before it held no sympathy. Her expression was one of cold resolve. Mercy was not an option. Not for this wretched beast. She pulled back the string of her bow, channeling an intense blue aura into her arrow. The pressure emanating from the charged shot was immense, causing the very air around them to tremble. Then, with a swift, decisive motion, she released the arrow. A powerful gust of wind exploded outward as the arrow soared through the air, its force cutting through the night like a spear of vengeance. The instant it found its mark, a system notification flashed before June's eyes. You have successfully hunted a level 28 red tiger. You have gained a significant amount of experience points. 311,776 one has been deposited into your shut-in wallet. As the tiger's body collapsed lifelessly onto the ground, another notification appeared. This one highlighting the growing dynamics among the group. Team trust and loyalty levels have increased. Another notification followed shortly after. Han's loyalty level has exceeded 30. He now meets the requirements to be registered as a vassal. A satisfied smile played on June's lips. Everything had gone exactly as planned. He nodded to himself before selecting the prompt to accept Han's registration as his vassal. A few moments later, the scene shifted to another part of the building, where someone was being healed. It was the healer, the woman who had previously collapsed in exhaustion. Within one of the rooms, now fully conscious, she focused her energy. The healer's hands glowed faintly as she tended to the wounded, their injuries fading rapidly under her care, leaving no scars behind. The first person she prioritized was the Werbear woman, whose body had suffered severe damage during the brutal encounter with the red tiger. June, watching from afar, reflected on the sheer luck they all had, including himself, in having found a healer in a situation like this. Han, still catching his breath, approached, and without wasting any time, June turned to him, asking what had happened below, particularly why the red tigers had suddenly appeared. Han, his voice still carrying traces of exhaustion and gratitude, explained that the location where Moon's grandmother's house had once stood was likely territory belonging to the red tigers. They had managed to take one down, but another had soon appeared, proving that the area was far more dangerous than they had initially assumed. Hearing this, June processed the information carefully. It made sense. There was no reason to believe that only goblins would inhabit this region, and now that he thought about it, there hadn't been any goblins in this area. That meant the goblins had probably already invaded the nearby buildings. If that was the case, Moon's grandmother wouldn't have been safe had she remained inside. Despite everything, the only reason she had survived was that she had unknowingly been within the red tiger's territory. June exhaled slowly, shaking his head. The sheer luck involved in this entire ordeal was truly something extraordinary. Just then, another system notification appeared before him. Healer's performance is being evaluated. 733121 has been deducted for the mission. The healer let out a relieved sigh upon realizing that her task had been successfully completed. Seeing her reaction, June stepped forward and acknowledged her efforts, telling her she had done a great job. However, she quickly waved off his praise and instead asked if she could finally return home. Before anyone could respond, a voice interrupted. Wait a moment. It was Fatty, who had finally reappeared after spending some time resting and recovering from the ordeal. Scratching the back of his head, he looked around awkwardly before addressing the group. I know this might not be the best time to bring this up, but are you guys seriously planning on gathering in my apartment all the time? June turned his attention to Fatty, and for the first time, truly took in the number of people currently occupying the space. The realization dawned on him, and at that moment, everyone around them wore equally amused and sheepish expressions. With a small chuckle, June reassured him that there was no need to worry. He had already made arrangements. Unit 291 was currently unoccupied, with electricity, water, and every other necessity for daily life provided, and they were free to live there. Upon hearing this, the entire group erupted in joy. He also called out to Dabin, informing her that Units 2101 and 2102 were currently unoccupied as well. June stated that he would ensure electricity was supplied to those units and requested that she notify the other survivors, letting them know they could use the bathrooms and showers in those apartments. Upon hearing this, Dabin and her brother exchanged glances before nodding in agreement, assuring him they would take care of it. June then added that, out of the two available units, Dabin and her brother were welcome to claim one for themselves. The unexpected offer left both of them stunned, their jaws practically dropping in disbelief. June, however, remained composed and instructed them to inform the other survivors that they may take the remaining unit. After settling that, June shifted the conversation to another matter, saying that he had a favor to ask. Dabin, still somewhat taken aback, encouraged him to go ahead and say what he needed. Without hesitation, June stated that he wanted her to become the messenger between himself and the rest of the survivors. The moment those words left his mouth, Dabin paused, furrowing her brows in confusion. She repeated his request, asking if she had heard him correctly. Did he really mean messenger? June, completely serious, confirmed it. He then laid out the details of his plan, instructing her to inform everyone that whichever team managed to eliminate 100 goblins the fastest would be rewarded with an empty unit of their own. Furthermore, he emphasized that, in addition to securing a place to live, the winning team would also receive essential supplies, unlimited electricity, running water, gas, and food, ensuring their survival and comfort. But there was more. June went on to clarify that if the team agreed to take in 10 additional survivors, those individuals would also be granted access to the same benefits. For a brief moment, the atmosphere in the room grew heavy with tension. The weight of June's words settled over them, and everyone seemed to grasp the implications of what he was proposing. Then, as if anticipating concerns, June added one final note. He instructed Dabin to make sure she informed them that the distribution of these benefits might take longer depending on which floor their new residence was located. As he watched their reactions, June contemplated his next move. From this point forward, he realized every decision would be like moving pieces in a strategic game of chess. Only those who proved their worth would receive the resources they needed. At that moment, a system notification appeared before him. A new quest had materialized, an official mission to hunt down goblins. The quest had a strict time limit of 168 hours, a modest reward of experience points, and a harsh penalty for failure, being barred from using any shared facilities. A final message flashed before his eyes. Will you grant this quest? Yes or no? The residents June had helped began hunting the goblins outside. One of them, a young man in a red jacket, was desperately running for his life, chased by an enormous horde of goblins. His breath was ragged, his legs burned with exhaustion, but he had no choice. He had to keep moving forward. The goblins were enraged, shrieking as they pursued him, their eyes glowing with savage hunger. Min, the young man in the red jacket, was already drained from all the running, regret creeping in as he cursed himself for getting into this situation. Yet, he kept repeating in his mind that he just needed to endure a little longer. As he continued sprinting, his eyes locked onto a door ahead, his last hope of survival. It led into the parking lot. Behind him, the goblins with their sharp claws outstretched were closing in rapidly, almost managing to grasp him. But at the last second, Min threw himself forward, sliding across the ground as if making a desperate soccer tackle. His body barely squeezed through the doorway, just before the goblins could reach him. With whatever breath he had left, he screamed in desperation, urging the others to attack immediately, his voice ringing with panic as he warned them that the whole thing had been a trap. 3 other members of the group, armed with spears, stepped forward, assessing the situation with calm determination. They acknowledged Min's efforts, commending him for luring in even more goblins than they had initially expected. Without wasting a second, the spear-wielding men launched their assault, their weapons thrust forward in swift, practiced movements, piercing through the goblins before they could force their way through the door. Some goblins, already wounded, stumbled back, while others still fought desperately, pushing forward with wild fury. One by one, the goblins were cut down, their bodies flung backward with every powerful strike. Realizing the overwhelming disadvantage, one of the goblins, seemingly higher in rank, let out a sharp, commanding screech, a call for retreat. Upon hearing it, several goblins turned tail and began fleeing without even looking back. Noticing their retreat, the spear-wielding men shouted for everyone to attack faster before they could escape. One of them suddenly grinned, a glint of mischief in his eyes, as if he had just come up with something interesting. He turned to the others and asked if they wanted to see something cool. His teammates, unsure of what he was planning but intrigued nonetheless, nodded in agreement. The red-haired man took a deep breath, steadying himself, his focus entirely on his target. Holding his spear tightly, he aimed at the fleeing goblins and, with a force that almost seemed superhuman, hurled it forward. The sheer speed and strength behind the throw made it seem as if he possessed some hidden power, but in reality, it was pure brute strength. The spear flew past the twin brothers, slicing through the air at an incredible speed, heading straight for the escaping goblins. One of the goblins, foolishly thinking it had made it to safety, was struck squarely in the back. Its body convulsed for a brief moment before falling lifelessly to the ground. The red-haired man turned back to the twins, a triumphant grin spreading across his face as he asked if they thought that was amazing. The twins, their eyes wide in awe, immediately agreed, saying it was absolutely badass. Stretching his arms as if shaking off the tension, the red-haired man casually asked how many goblins each of them had managed to kill. The twin on the left proudly declared that he had taken down 22, while the twin on the right smirked and smugly announced that he had won, having slain 23. Hearing this, the red-haired man grinned even wider, stating that they had officially completed their mission of defeating 100 goblins. After all, between just the 3 of them, they had already slain over 100. The twins exchanged glances, surprised at how quickly they had achieved their goal. They had initially thought it would take an eternity to eliminate that many goblins. Just then, Min, the man in the red jacket, stormed up to them, clearly irritated. He wasted no time in complaining, reminding the red-haired man that he had said there would be only about 10 goblins, yet Min had barely escaped with his life. The red-haired man immediately bristled, veins bulging on his forehead in frustration. He snapped back, demanding to know what Min was whining about this time. Min, still seething, shot back that there was no way anyone could have mistaken that many goblins for just 10, and he had nearly died because of it. Rolling his eyes, the red-haired man brushed off his complaints, saying that the results had turned out well. Thanks to their success, they were about to get a brand new place to live, so Min should quit complaining. Irritated, he then told Min to pay attention and even called him bro, suggesting they might actually be siblings. Then, with the veins on his face bulging even more, he reminded Min that he had come up with this hunting strategy himself, so there was never any chance of failure. He also pointed out that it was his idea to use the spears, which had been crafted by the twins. All Min had to do was run, something he was already confident in doing. With an exasperated sigh, the red-haired man then offered Min a way out. If he was that dissatisfied, he could simply leave the team. At this point, his presence wasn't even making much of a difference anymore. Sensing the tension between the 2 brothers, the twins quickly intervened to prevent the argument from escalating into an actual fight. One of the twins calmly asked the red-haired man to relax, reminding him that Min had put in effort as well. The other twin, with a playful grin, turned to Min and told him that he had done an excellent job acting as bait, pointing out that he had been running incredibly fast. The red-haired man clicked his tongue in irritation, saying that Min always managed to find a way to get on his nerves. He then demanded to know how Min dared to talk back to him like that. One of the twins, still grinning, urged Min to just apologize and get it over with. Realizing that arguing would get him nowhere, Min let out a sigh and begrudgingly muttered an apology. The red-haired man huffed in response, then turned his back on him, dismissing the whole ordeal. He stated that it was time to move on. They needed to head to the 21st floor to claim their new home. However, upon arriving at the 21st floor, ready to receive their reward. As the group arrived at the 21st floor, expecting their reward, they were met with unexpected news. Dabin, looking somewhat apologetic, informed them that another team had already beaten them to it and claimed the reward first. The entire group froze in disbelief, their excitement immediately turning into shock. In their minds, they had been incredibly fast. There was no way another team had completed the mission before them. The red-haired man's face darkened, irritation flaring up again as he demanded to know if there was really another team that had managed to slay 100 goblins faster than them. Dabin nodded, confirming it. Still unable to believe what he was hearing, the red-haired man furrowed his brows and told Dabin to stop joking around. In a protesting tone, he repeated himself, demanding that Dabin hand over their house already. Dabin, maintaining a serious expression, insisted that it was no joke. She was telling the truth. Then, she revealed that the group who had finished the hunt even faster had just arrived. When the red-haired man and his team saw who they were, his irritation only grew. The victorious group consisted of Dabin's brother and an elderly couple, both of whom were smiling cheerfully as if nothing had happened. Turning to her brother, Dabin asked how things had gone with June. In response, her brother explained that they had made a deal. In exchange for giving up the new house, his own home, and the elderly couple's home would now have electricity, food, and other necessities. On top of that, their daughters would no longer have to take part in missions. Upon hearing this, Dabin immediately pointed out that the elderly couple's daughters were minors, meaning they should have already been exempt from missions in the first place. However, the elderly couple, still smiling and unfazed, corrected her, saying that their daughters were actually adults, despite their youthful appearance. They were older than they seemed. The elderly woman then added that their daughters were probably quite skilled with bows and arrows, though her husband always worried too much about them. Dabin's brother also mentioned that part of the agreement included providing bows and arrows for their daughters. Dabin frowned, questioning the need for weapons. Were they planning to continue hunting goblins? Her brother nodded, confirming that they were, but specified that June had only requested them to hunt the goblins in the surrounding areas. Since the goblins were relentless and kept coming no matter how many were killed, it was necessary to keep them under control. Hearing all of this, the red-haired man grew even more irritated and told them to stop with all the useless chatter. Then, in a firm voice, he questioned whether they were giving themselves special privileges simply because they were the ones in charge. Wasn't that unfair to some extent? Dabin's brother agreed, but explained that to balance things out, June had ordered the second and third groups to kill 100 goblins and then head to the 30th floor to receive their rewards. Upon hearing that, a genuine smile appeared on Dabin's face. She reassured the red-haired man and his group that everything had worked out and instructed them to head up to the 30th floor, adding that June would be waiting for them there. Even as they ascended in the elevator, the red-haired man, still visibly irritated, remained bitter about not being the first group. Then, out of nowhere, he suddenly asked if the guy's name was really June, since he looked younger than all of them. Then, laughing with clear sarcasm, he commented on how ridiculous it had been to hear Dabin speak so respectfully about this June. One of the twins joined in on the sarcasm, joking that maybe Dabin saw June as some kind of god or something. The other twin laughed as well and scoffed, saying, "God my ass, at most he's just the leader of some cult." Then, as if pondering the idea, he questioned whether this June guy was even sane in the first place. Min, who had been listening to all of this quietly, murmured under his breath that all of them were being protected thanks to June's abilities. Therefore, maybe they didn't have the right to speak about him like that. The moment those words left his mouth, the atmosphere inside the elevator changed. Everyone else became visibly irritated. The red-haired man, looking more annoyed than ever, questioned if all of them were just trying to get on June's good side. That single remark filled the elevator with a tense silence. Everyone was now staring at Min. As expected, the red-haired man, frustrated beyond belief, cursed at Min under his breath. Then, glancing over his shoulder with a menacing expression, he warned Min that they would have a little talk later. At that moment, the twins noticed something strange. June was approaching, walking at a calm and leisurely pace, one hand tucked casually into his pocket. As he neared them, he gave them a small, relaxed smile and simply said, "Hello." That simple greeting, combined with the way June carried himself, sent a wave of shock through all four members of the group. Feeling a sudden nervousness creeping over him, the red-haired man hesitated before extending his hand and introducing himself as Bek Sanjab. June shook his hand in a firm yet casual manner, acknowledging him before commenting that he had observed how Sanjab and his team had hunted. He noted that they had made excellent use of the barrier, and that their strategy had been quite effective. Hearing that sent another chill down Sanjab's spine. his voice slightly unsteady. He asked how June could possibly know that. June completely ignored the question. Instead, he simply smiled and stated that from now on, he would be providing electricity, water, and gas to Units 1301 and 1502. Sanjab, still trying to make sense of what was happening, managed to thank him but couldn't hold back another question. How was any of this possible? Once again, Sanjab asked how June was doing all of this, how exactly he was making it happen. And yet, for the second time, June ignored him. Instead, he casually reminded them that since they had successfully hunted 100 goblins, they were now qualified for these benefits. Then, as if the entire situation wasn't unsettling enough, June's expression shifted into a disturbingly eerie smile. With a tone that sent chills down their spines, he added, "By the way, I'm not some cult leader." His eyes glinted with amusement as he continued, "And I certainly don't have any intention of becoming a god." The weight of those words left the entire group frozen in place, completely paralyzed with fear and unable to react. Then, with that same eerie and slightly devilish smile, June raised his hand near his mouth, as if about to share a secret. "There's just one more thing," he said, his voice carrying an unsettling undertone. "I have a request to make of you." Sometime after that, the new group is seen running at full speed, desperately fleeing from something. When the scene shifts to a front view, the four members are revealed to be escaping, but this time it's not from goblins. It's from massive, bloodthirsty orcs. Their feet move swiftly as they turn a corner, frantically trying to put more distance between themselves and the monsters. As they round another street, they shout desperately for someone to hurry up and throw things at the orcs. Standing in front of them is Han, holding several spears in his hands. With a subtle smirk, Han tells them they did a good job. As the orcs remain distracted by the fleeing group, Han channels his energy into one of his spears, causing a blue aura to radiate from its blade. A system notification appears displaying Han's stats, level 33, holding the title of the 6th Knight, with 70 points in trust and 78 in loyalty. His awakened ability is throwing. Han's throws were already powerful, but now, by consuming mental energy, he can amplify his attack power up to 5 times. As he focuses on his throw, energy visibly gathers along the blade of his spear. The system further indicates that his physical abilities increase by a percentage based on his loyalty, that the experience points and money dropped by monsters are tripled, and that knights can grow at an accelerated rate. Then, with immense force, Han hurls the spear, striking one of the leading orcs directly. Upon witnessing its companion fall, another orc becomes enraged, gripping a massive machete. It lunges forward, ready to strike Han with a devastating blow. Despite facing such a formidable enemy, Han remains completely calm. That's because, from the back line, a well-aimed arrow infused with energy is already soaring toward the orc. The arrow pierces the orc's head, and with that, it's clear who fired the shot. The archer had been providing cover from the rear all along, and that was precisely why Han could remain so composed. As the second orc collapses, Han swiftly draws another spear and hurls it toward the third orc. The moment it lands, Han finally exhales and says that it's all over. At that moment, a notification appears for June, informing him that he has successfully hunted a level 19 orc and earned wands as a reward for the mission to eliminate 100 orcs. With the mission now complete, 3 people who had been hiding from the orcs in that region are rescued. Han approaches them, reassuring them that there is a safe place they can go. As they move toward the main group, the system suddenly issues an alert. Unauthorized individuals are attempting to enter the system. Then, it prompts June, asking if he would like to grant them citizenship. Having just deactivated his Ultimate Eyes ability, June notices that this time there are 3 new individuals. When he looks at the system's interface, he realizes that by accepting them, the total number of citizens under his care has now reached 200. A new system notification appears, confirming that citizenship has been granted to the 3 newcomers, bringing the total to 200. The system further reveals that as the number of citizens reaches certain thresholds, new abilities are unlocked. This time, the ability tax collection has been activated. This newly unlocked ability allows him to collect 10% of all the money his citizens possess. However, it comes with a cooldown period of 30 days. Realizing this, June understands that the tax collection ability essentially returns a portion of the citizens' money to him. As he contemplates it, he notes that these kinds of actions are not something he can freely reverse whenever he wants. Biting his finger anxiously, he acknowledges that he will have to wait a long time before he can actually benefit from it. But time is a luxury he does not have. He is running out of time to save his parents and must send Han's team to where they are as soon as possible. Scrolling through the system, June considers redistributing only 30% of the collected funds, seeing it as an investment. Upon executing this command, the system notifies him that the ability's level has increased, reaching level 10 and granting him 3 additional skill points. At that moment, June feels a sharp tightness in his chest, accompanied by intense pain. A deep purple domain expansion begins spreading beyond the building. Another system notification appears, displaying a congratulatory message. It states that with this expansion, an official declaration has been made across every corner of the apartment complex. Additionally, a fund of 1 billion wons has been deposited into his wallet. Furthermore, the construction function has been activated. Still clutching his chest from the lingering pain, Jun looks at the system screen, reading the new notification. His mind immediately starts racing, questioning what exactly this construction function entails. The system then displays a list of available facilities that can be built along with their respective costs. It also shows the value of the fund and an annual production revenue of 30 million wons. The available construction options include a solar power generator, a store, and a training facility. As he reads through the details, Jun is visibly shocked. The annual revenue is only 30 million wons, yet installing a solar power generator alone costs 130 million wons. That means he would need to maintain the solar power system for nearly 5 years just to break even. Following this realization, the system asks if he would like to proceed with installing the solar power generator for now. Jun declines, stating that his current priority lies elsewhere. The money needs to be allocated toward more immediate necessities, such as increasing the levels of his vassals. At that moment, Jun notices something different, something unusual. The system displays the total amount in the fund, exactly 1 billion wons, the same amount he had received upon leveling up. After investigating further, the system clarifies that this amount is exclusively available for construction purposes. Trying to process what he was reading, it takes Jun a moment for everything to click. But when it finally does, he smiles, realizing just how significant this is. This money is entirely separate from the funds in his personal wallet. Seeing this as an extremely positive thing, Jun quickly understands that there's no reason to hold back from using it all. Without hesitation, he accepts the installation of the solar power system. The system then informs him that the process will take 24 hours to complete and updates his remaining balance, which now stands at 867 million wons. Looking at the cost, Jun realizes that it was surprisingly cheap. This leads him to ask whether the system is capable of installing an additional solar generator. The system responds that only one solar generator can be installed per apartment building. With that in mind, Jun shifts his attention to the store option. As he selects it, he is met with an unexpected but pleasant surprise. The feature is far more impressive than he had initially thought. This store is directly linked to the one he already owns, allowing him to sell registered items to his citizens. However, what truly makes this ability unique is that it is not a physical store. Instead, the system produces items in real time, and as long as there are funds available, the system itself will handle the transactions. Up until recently, managing and distributing supplies had been a tedious and time-consuming task, with Dabin having to handle most of the distribution. But now, with a system-operated store in place, the citizens will be able to purchase what they need on their own. As he reflects on this, Jun realizes that he can personally set the prices, increasing overall liquidation rates even further. Without hesitation, he issues the command to install the store immediately. The system prompts him to select a location for the store's installation. He carefully considers the available locations before deciding to place it on the 101st floor. The system then displays the remaining construction time, 48 hours until completion. Finally, the training facility. The system notifies him that this training facility will allow citizens to improve their strength and endurance through basic training exercises with a 200% efficiency boost. Additionally, for those below level 15, an extra 300% efficiency bonus will apply. Reading this, Jun feels a surge of excitement. He already knew that leveling up through training was possible, but with these additional boosts, progress would be significantly faster. Additionally, this would make it even easier to reap mission rewards. The system also prompts him to choose a location for the training facility. Jun decides to install it across the entire second floor, converting the entire level into a dedicated training center. The system then updates, displaying a 72-hour countdown for its completion. Lastly, there are also the 3 skill points he had acquired. However, something new has also been unlocked, the itemization feature. This allows registered products to be purchased in different sizes and quantities. Intrigued, Jun taps on the system interface to learn more details. Until now, package deals were available, but individual purchases had only just become possible. Looking through the list, he sees various liquid-based items and notes that while not everything is there yet, the range of available options has expanded significantly. There are now different types of food and additional product variations. Now, with a slightly mischievous smile and a new plan forming in his mind, Jun realizes just how useful this could be. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Togi is clad in his knight armor, engaged in combat against an orc wielding a large knife. The orc lands a strike, but Togi's armor absorbs the impact, leaving him completely unharmed. Spotting an opening, Togi seizes the moment and delivers a decisive blow, eliminating the orc with a single strike. After defeating his opponent, Togi sighs in relief, muttering that it was a close call and that this battle is far more exhausting than expected. From behind him, Han calls out to Togi and poses a question. What would happen if he threw the halberd he was holding? Looking down at the weapon in his grip, Togi admits that he has never actually considered that possibility before. Han then asks him to hand over the halberd for a moment, wanting to try something. As soon as Han takes hold of it, a familiar blue aura begins to radiate from his hands. Focusing intensely, he prepares himself before hurling the weapon with all his might. The halberd soars through the air at an incredible speed, vanishing into the distance with overwhelming force. Togi, wide-eyed in shock, watches in disbelief before finally speaking. He had assumed Han was joking when he mentioned throwing the halberd. Now, however, the weapon was far beyond their reach. Crossing his arms, Han simply responds that he has already thrown it. Now, he suggests that Togi deactivate the weapon summoning and call it back again. Only then does Togi finally understand what Han had been thinking when he proposed the idea. Focusing, Togi channels his energy and cancels the summoning of the halberd before reactivating it. Instantly, another halberd materializes in his hands. Togi stares at the weapon in awe, his surprise quickly turning into exhilaration. Overcome with excitement, he turns to Han, calling him a genius. Han, however, remains modest and tells him not to exaggerate. Just then, the female archer arrives, looking somewhat tense. She informs them that they need to leave as her supply of arrows is running low. However, just as she finishes speaking, something completely unexpected catches her attention. Glancing down at the ground, the archer spots something unusual. Confused, she asks what it is, because right before their eyes, a fresh quiver filled with new arrows is materializing out of nowhere. It was as if June himself was telling them that they were meant to continue the mission. Retreat was not an option.
The system displays a new ability called OmniFocus, which allows the user to activate another ability while observing an area using the Ultimate Eyes ability. After collecting the new arrows, the archer continues hunting creatures alongside the group. The system keeps notifying them of the orc kills, showing that the last one was level 19 and the amount of one deposited into the shut-in wallet. Additionally, the system indicates that some citizens have completed the mission assigned to them, resulting in more ones being spent. Furthermore, some citizens are leveling up. With his arms crossed, June looks at the system and realizes that he has always been right. It is indeed possible to increase attributes through mission rewards as well. A glimmer of hope begins to appear in his thoughts. Staring out the window, he notes that his parents' house is about 10 kilometers away, which would take approximately 3 hours on foot to reach. After considering this, he decides to take a walk around the building and heads toward the elevator. Upon stepping out, he makes his way toward the rooftop, approaching the highest point of the structure. Observing the state of the city in the aftermath of the apocalypse, he takes in the sight of the ruins, every single building reduced to rubble except for his own. The devastation is overwhelming, and he mutters that this is truly horrifying. Thoughts race through June's mind, and he quickly comes to a realization. He needs to act fast as soon as possible. Opening the system window, he decides to start with Hans's group. The first person the system highlights is the bespectacled man John. He holds the title of Seventh Servant, with a trust level of 59 and a loyalty level of 33, and his awakened ability is the Raven PCT. Seeing this, June realizes that as long as John's ability is being effectively utilized for reconnaissance, it would be best for him to team up with the Warbear and the Healer. The Warbear Yenju is at level 33 and has awakened the Warrior Bear ability, but her loyalty remains low at only 12. Meanwhile, the Healer Kim Dejang is at level 30 and has the awakened abilities of Healing Blessing and Magic Armor. Examining the details, June notes that, unlike the Healer, who is already registered as a vassal, the Warbear does not yet possess the necessary trust to qualify for vassal status. Beyond her healing ability, the Healer also possesses an A-tier blessing, which enhances physical abilities by 70%. Additionally, she has a B-tier magic armor, which generates a magical barrier that protects a chosen target. Kim recognizes that those who had an awakened ability from the beginning hold a tremendous advantage and begins to wonder how he could gain the Warbear woman's trust. Recalling her desperate goal of resurrecting her son, June questions whether that might be the only way. He opens the system's resurrection tab, and immediately, the system informs him that he does not have enough money to grant the reward, instructing him to acquire more funds. Kim clenches his fists in frustration, irritated that he still lacks the necessary amount. An idea sparks in his mind to drastically increase the difficulty of the missions to the highest level possible. He then declares that he will set up a mission to hunt a level 40 monster, knowing that such a monster must be incredibly powerful, which in turn would yield a far greater reward. With a serious expression, he sets the time limit to 24 hours. The penalty, yet once again, the system notifies him that he does not have enough money to provide the resurrection reward. Despite the harsh penalty of death upon failure, June is infuriated that the system still deems it insufficient. Then another notification appears, momentarily catching him off guard. The system announces that he has slain a level 18 orc. An idea suddenly takes root in his mind. Perhaps a group mission might work. Without hesitation, he reopens the system and attempts to issue a mission to hunt a level 40 or higher monster, with the same 24-hour time limit and the same penalty of death upon failure. However, this time, the reward is modified. The werebear's son will be resurrected, but only for 1 day. June accepts the mission, determining that for now, he must ensure the werebear woman fully commits to his cause. Back in his room, June hears desperate knocking at his door. A frantic voice from the other side pleads for him to open it. June moves toward the door, and as he cracks it open, he barely has time to react. The werebear woman barges in. Without waiting for him to open it fully, she had already been informed of the mission's reward and the possibility of resurrecting her son, which explained why she looked completely exhausted. Her eyes brim with tears as she declares with a trembling voice that she will do anything at all, and she is willing to start immediately. June tells her that it is indeed possible, but there is a strict time limit, 24 hours to complete the mission and 24 hours for the resurrection itself. Upon hearing this, the werebear woman collapses into uncontrollable sobs, overwhelmed by the mere possibility of something she had long believed to be impossible. Tears stream down her face as she expresses her heartfelt gratitude to June, telling him that she is truly happy, ecstatic, to have even just 1 day with her son. With unwavering determination, she promises that she will do whatever it takes to make it happen. After that, the system notifies that she has surpassed 30 loyalty points and can now be registered as a vassal. Sometime later, June is seen lying in his room, staring at the ceiling, and with nothing but the power of his mind, he manages to turn on the light. Realizing that he succeeded, he shifts his focus to the faucet and attempts to do the same. He concentrates, directing his thoughts toward opening the faucet until water begins to flow. At first, only a few droplets trickle out, barely noticeable. He concentrates a little harder, and this time, he manages to fully open the faucet, allowing water to gush out at maximum flow. Feeling somewhat relieved, June comments that this is pretty cool, but at the same time, he has already grown somewhat accustomed to it. Now, he feels as if he has become a mage, like something straight out of Harry Potter, wielding a wand and controlling electricity, water, and gas with precise mastery. The system then displays an update indicating that the store's earnings are being calculated. A total of 32,9181 wands has been deposited into the shut-in wallet. Glancing at the system, June does some quick calculations and realizes that a profit of 320,000 wands suggests that today's total sales have exceeded 1.5 million. He activates the Ultimate Eye's ability to check on the people within the building, observing what they are doing on the different floors. On another floor, a man asks how much they need to save. Another man holding a bow responds that the bow itself costs 150,000 wands, and today they only earned 10,000 wands, meaning it will take roughly 15 days. The first man calls the other an idiot, pointing out that he didn't even factor in the cost of water and food for the next 15 days. Frustrated, the man with the bow turns his back and says that since the other is so smart, he should calculate everything on his own. Observing the interactions and dynamics between the people, June notes how much the atmosphere has shifted ever since he started distributing the reward money. He also realizes that ever since the mysterious place known as the store appeared on the first floor of the building, the small amount of money earned from hunting goblins has begun to ignite a growing desire among the people to hunt even more. And now that there are no longer enough goblins left within the apartment complex, people are being forced to venture outside in search of prey. Looking at the system, he feels a certain satisfaction as level-ups are progressing steadily and the number of new citizens has grown significantly. The system shows that the current population is 789, with XP and money bonuses now at 100%. Fixated on the system screen, June realizes that things are about to expand exponentially from this point forward. Then, once again, another notification appears. Another level 18 orc has been slain. Sometime later down below, the werebear woman, with her immense superhuman strength, is tearing through wave after wave of goblins, crushing them without hesitation. Now she is emitting a golden aura, striking fear into the goblins before they even have a chance to fight back. Without wasting a single second, her thoughts consumed by the possibility of seeing her son again, she charges forward, completely obliterating the remaining goblins. Once no more goblins are left standing, she begins to revert to her human form. The exhaustion catches up with her, and she breathes heavily, struggling to steady herself. From a distance, the healer calls out to her, asking if she is okay and whether she is injured anywhere. The werbear reassures her that she is fine, stating that even if she were hurt, it wouldn't be enough to stop her. The healer, concerned, urges her not to push herself too hard, mentioning that she is eliminating all the monsters before anyone else even has a chance to fight them. The werbear apologizes, insisting that she isn't trying to steal anyone's kills. The archer, curious, asks why she is apologizing in the first place, pointing out that by taking down the monsters so quickly, she is making things much easier for everyone. Hearing this, the werbear feels a sense of relief. Her companions are not upset with her after all. Watching from afar using the ultimate eyes, June acknowledges that forming this team was indeed a good decision. The system then updates, displaying the werbear woman's status. Her name is Yun, and she has now reached level 40, with her trust and loyalty both rising to 66. She has also acquired new abilities beyond just her werbear transformation. The newly awakened abilities are Ancestral Vital Blood and Primal Frenzy. These new abilities grant her a 50% boost to melee attack damage. Additionally, whenever she sustains wounds, Vital Blood drastically increases her regeneration. Furthermore, her eyes turn crimson upon witnessing blood, triggering an effect that amplifies her physical abilities by an astonishing 300%. Before she has a chance to process these new developments, the women suddenly hear a terrifying, unfamiliar roar echoing through the air, immediately putting them on high alert. The growls grow louder and closer, signaling that whatever is coming is approaching fast. Then, out of the shadows, a monstrous figure appears, stopping just a short distance in front of them. Without hesitation, the archer swiftly pulls back her bowstring while the werbear instructs the healer to fall back slightly. Standing before them is an orc, its presence alone exuding an overwhelming aura of menace. Its crimson eyes gleam ominously, and its body is riddled with deep scars, evidence of countless battles. In its massive hands, it grips a weapon resembling a giant club, and it begins to speak in a language that none of them can understand. Faced with the imminent threat before her, the werbear woman does not hesitate for a single second and immediately begins her transformation. In an instant, she completes the shift into her full beastly form, her massive figure standing in a battle stance directly in front of the orc. Now enveloped by her golden aura, she lunges forward to attack the enemy while, in the background, both the archer and the healer call out, urging her to be careful. As she charges, she lets out a deafening roar in an attempt to intimidate the orc, but he remains unfazed, standing his ground and locking eyes with her. With his club firmly in hand, the orc also assumes a battle-ready posture, prepared to engage the werbear head-on. At that very moment, the werbear woman unleashes her first strike. However, the orc reacts swiftly, managing to block the attack with his weapon. Without hesitation, she delivers another blow, but the orc remains solely on the defensive, skillfully withstanding the onslaught of her relentless attacks. Noticing an opening, she quickly shifts her angle, launching a strike from a different direction in an effort to land a clean hit on her opponent. Meanwhile, as the fierce exchange of attacks continues, the archer readies her bow. With unwavering determination in her eyes, she focuses intensely on her target, and a brilliant blue aura begins to radiate from the arrow. Observing the battle closely, she notices a brief moment when the orc becomes slightly distracted while fending off the werbear's strikes. Seizing the opportunity, she releases her powerful shot with impeccable precision. Catching sight of the incoming arrow, the werbear woman swiftly retreats a few steps to avoid being hit. The orc, displaying impressive reflexes, swiftly swings his club to deflect the projectile, narrowly avoiding the attack. However, this movement momentarily exposes a weakness, and without wasting a second, the werbear, fueled by raw fury, surges forward with overwhelming force. With the full weight of her massive body behind her charge, she manages to slam into the orc, sending him crashing to the ground. Not allowing him even a moment to recover, she bares her enormous razor-sharp fangs. The orc's eyes widen in terror as he realizes that this could very well be his end, and with a single devastating bite, she finishes him off, bringing an abrupt end to his life. At that precise moment, the system notifies June that he has successfully hunted a level 28 orc captain, and as a result, a larger sum of wands has been deposited into the shut-in wallet. Additionally, a certain condition has been fulfilled, one that allows for the construction of a new forward outpost. This forward outpost resembles a defense tower, and according to the system, it serves as a safe zone located outside of the main home. When activated, it temporarily exerts the same protective influence as the house itself. There are two conditions for its activation. The first is that it will only be operational if a citizen holding the rank of knight or higher resides there. The second condition states that if an unauthorized individual remains inside for more than a day, the outpost will automatically be destroyed. Reading this information, Jun is caught off guard, surprised by the realization that he now has the ability to construct something entirely new. A grin spreads across his face as he remarks that despite the staggering cost of 1.3 billion wons, his bank account has more than enough funds. Now that all the orcs have been dealt with, he decides that this forward outpost is well worth the investment. The system also displays additional details revealing that the construction process will take 7 full days and will require 3 citizens of knight rank or higher to be stationed there. With that in mind, Jun realizes that his only option is to wait for those 7 days while the 3 necessary members return to occupy the outpost. As various thoughts race through his mind, the one that troubles him most is the sheer amount of time that will be lost. An entire week spent waiting. Deep in thought, he acknowledges that he cannot afford to waste too much time. Furthermore, most of the monsters near the outpost site have already been eliminated thanks to the efforts of his citizens. Understanding this, Jun decisively presses the button on the system to initiate the construction of the outpost. Even though it will take 7 days, he realizes that it is not a bad option at all. If he can build this within the main house's territory, it will at least provide him with some peace of mind. As these thoughts occupy his mind, he finds himself recalling memories from his childhood, moments of pure happiness spent with his family. And now, by strengthening his domain, he believes he will be able to protect his family more effectively. Staring out the window at the ruined city beyond, he feels a deep sense of unease, knowing that bringing his grandparents here will not be an easy task. Closing his eyes, he silently wishes for his family's safety. When he opens them again, his resolve strengthens. Since things have reached this point, he decides that tomorrow he will send Han's group to begin the rescue mission. The following day arrives, and once again they find themselves back at the train station. A bespectacled man watches the events unfolding before him in absolute disbelief. At the front lines, the Werbear woman is tearing through enemies, completely unstoppable. While he observes in utter shock from the sidelines, witnessing her eliminate the monsters one by one, he struggles to comprehend how a single person could possibly be capable of taking down an orc with nothing but her bare hands. With every orc she slaughters, the realization dawns on him. She is no ordinary human, she is a Werbear. Even though he is still overwhelmed by everything happening before his eyes, he acknowledges that it all makes sense. After all, she was already incredibly powerful even before receiving Jun's blessing. As she continues her relentless rampage, crushing orcs with ease, one thought refuses to leave the bespectacled man's mind. How the hell did Jun manage to win her over? After all, not too long ago, this Werbear woman was utterly obsessed with hunting goblins. The bespectacled man then considers the possibility that she may have acquired new abilities despite already being incredibly strong. At that moment, the system displays a notification indicating that there is a mission with a strict time limit of 1 hour. They must complete the mission and return home within this time frame, though there is no penalty in case of failure. Back at the station, the bespectacled man takes position at the front to scout the area, carefully scanning his surroundings. Not far from him, he spots the rest of the group who had accompanied him on this mission. Han calls out to him, suggesting that it would be best to head back home. The bespectacled man turns around, briefly considering the suggestion, and ultimately nods in agreement. As he waits, his raven, an extension of his newly acquired ability, returns from its reconnaissance flight. The bird lands gracefully on his arm, having completed its task, and the bespectacled man gazes at it with pride. Gently stroking the raven's sleek feathers, he decides to name it Black and expresses his gratitude for its good work. Han steps closer, placing a firm hand on his shoulder before asking if he can now take the lead in patrolling ahead given his new ability. The bespectacled man turns to Black, instructing it to be cautious before sending it forward on a new scouting mission. The raven, its dark eyes filled with an eerie intelligence, silently observes its surroundings before taking flight once more. With a powerful beat of its wings, Black soars high above the station, climbing as high as possible among the towering buildings to gain a broad vantage point of the area. It moves in calculated circles, carefully surveying the entire perimeter. Thanks to the bespectacled man's new ability, he is able to access everything the raven sees as if their visions are linked, distance proving to be no obstacle to their connection. Once he fully processes the information relayed by Black, The bespectacled man turns to Han and reports that the area outside appears to be clear, confirming that it is safe to proceed. Han acknowledges the report with a nod and promptly signals the rest of the group. Upon receiving the order, everyone quickly moves into formation, positioning the strongest members at the outer edges while the healer remains securely in the center. As they march forward, the bespectacled man suddenly senses an unusual presence near his back. His instincts kick in, and without hesitation he whirls around to check for any threats. A faint rustling sound reaches his ears, and after a brief moment he identifies the source, a small rat scurrying along the path. Since he is positioned at the back line, the bespectacled man swiftly climbs onto the platform, stepping away from the train tracks to avoid obstructing the others. His companions continue moving ahead, yet an uneasy feeling lingers. Unable to shake it off, he turns once more to scan the area behind them, double-checking to ensure that they are not being followed. In the dimly lit tunnel just beyond the tracks, something catches his attention, a pair of gleaming eyes watching from the shadows. The eyes belong to a rat. Without hesitation, the small creature leaps forward, mirroring the group's path with uncanny precision. Relentlessly, despite its diminutive size, the rat pursues them, its glowing eyes locked onto their trail. Carefully and persistently, it follows their every move all the way to the station's exit. A short while later, back at the apartment, Jun expresses his desire for everyone to help him. Lowering his head slightly, he humbly asks for a favor and begins to explain the situation regarding his family. The other members of the group exchange glances, silently processing his words without uttering a single response. Jun continues, acknowledging that the chances of his family being alive are slim given the current state of the world. Han then asks if his relatives are also within the apartment complex, to which Jun replies that it is difficult to say for certain. At that moment, Moon steps forward and, without hesitation, exclaims that they will help rescue Jun's family. The sudden outburst catches everyone's attention, and all eyes turn to Moon as he fervently insists that they should be allowed to assist with this. Han, with a faint but genuine smile, nods in agreement, stating that all of them have only managed to survive up until now thanks to Jun's efforts. Turning to face Jun directly, Han firmly declares that they will help but only if Jun provides clear instructions on what needs to be done. Hearing this, Jun lets out a small, relieved smile and expresses his heartfelt gratitude for their willingness to assist him. With everyone watching attentively, he explains that now that they have successfully eliminated all the orcs occupying the station, their next move should be to follow the subway tracks leading to the next station. He then elaborates further, saying that this station is the closest one to his home. However, they can exit through exit number 2, and once outside, he will provide them with more specific instructions. Jun reassures them that he is not asking them to go there immediately in one direct mission, as that would be too selfish on his part. Instead, he clarifies that their current objective is simply to secure the station first. Once again, he bows his head slightly in gratitude, asking everyone to rest well for today, as the operation will commence the following day. At that moment, the Werbear woman respectfully asks for permission to speak. She then poses a question, wondering why Jun cannot simply use the abilities he has displayed so far to bring his family to him. A flicker of frustration crosses Jun's face as he admits that he has already tried. He has attempted teleporting a target as a mission reward. Furthermore, he had been excited when Moon awakened his teleportation ability, thinking it might allow them to bring his family back instantly. However, the system immediately indicated that such a reward was impossible, leading to a complete failure. Jun speculates that the reason his abilities do not work might be due to his family being outside of their effective range. Scratching his head in contemplation, he adds that if this truly is the reason, then even if his parents were to die, there would be absolutely nothing he could do to save them as they remain beyond his reach. As the group listens, Jun acknowledges that despite his powers, he is not capable of everything. Even with the abilities he has gained, there are still things beyond his control. Turning his gaze toward the Werbear woman, he reassures her not to worry, affirming that the promise he made to her before is one he can still fulfill. At that moment, the system displays a notification indicating that her trust in him has increased even further. She smiles warmly and thanks him for his honesty, appreciating that he has been straightforward from the very beginning. Jun, in turn, thanks the entire group for their honesty as well and once more urges them to rest for the day. One by one, they begin dispersing to prepare for the much-needed rest ahead. As Han steps away, he pauses briefly, turning back to remind Jun that he should get some rest as well. At that precise moment, something catches Jun's attention, making him instinctively glance to the side. The system suddenly notifies him that someone is attempting to enter and that this individual meets the necessary requirements, prompting the system to ask whether he wishes to grant them citizenship. Without hesitation, Jun activates his ultimate eyes ability and commands the system to approve the citizenship request. The system displays the name of the individual as Yena, a level 31 being with an awakened ability titled Queen of Rats. Upon using his ability to verify the identity of the applicant, Jun's eyes widen in shock, a wave of disbelief washing over him as he realizes that the one he had just granted citizenship to was, in fact, a rat. 1 hour earlier, while they were still inside the subway station, the rat had been observing the group closely, curiously wondering who these people were. These individuals were so powerful that they had managed to eliminate the orcs with remarkable ease. As the group ascended the stairs, the rat pondered whether their strength was due to the fact that they all had awakened abilities, but at the same time, it questioned if such a thing was even possible. Hiding in the corner of the wall, the rat considered the best course of action. Perhaps it would be wise to simply follow them for now and attempt to make contact later. The thought lingered in its mind that such an endeavor might be challenging, but with its abilities, it should be much easier. Determined, the rat took off in pursuit of the group. Now outside the station, amidst the city's ruined streets, the rat continued tailing them, convincing itself that it was only taking a quick look around. Upon arriving at their destination, the rat's ears twitched as it picked up the sound of human voices, children's laughter, and other noises that were incredibly unusual in this world. Looking ahead, it saw children playing carefree, as if untouched by the devastation that plagued the rest of the world. The sight left the rat in complete shock. In a post-apocalyptic world, such a scene was simply unnatural. Turning its gaze to the other side, the rat found itself questioning why so many people were gathered inside that particular building. Fixating on the only structure that remained completely intact, it wondered what in the world that place was. With a deep sense of curiosity, it decided to take a closer look. However, as it attempted to leap up the steps and enter, it slammed its head into something invisible. A dull ache surged through its skull, and a large lump immediately began forming on its tiny head. The sudden pain caused the rat to let out a pitiful cry. It had collided with a system-generated window that displayed a message stating that entry was prohibited. While rubbing its sore head and trying to make sense of what had just happened, another system window appeared before it, asking whether it wished to acquire citizenship. Still slightly irritated from the unexpected collision, the rat, without much thought, accepted the citizenship offer. Yet despite agreeing, the system window stubbornly remained in front of it. A flicker of frustration crossed the rat's face as it muttered that such a thing was probably impossible for a mere rat. But in the very next instant, the system confirmed that citizenship had indeed been granted. Overwhelmed with excitement, the rat raised its tiny fist triumphantly, as if celebrating a great victory. A part of it still wondered if this had actually worked. Stepping forward, it entered the building, reassuring itself that everything was fine now. However, the moment it crossed the threshold, panic erupted. The sight of a rat inside sent the people into a frenzy. Instantly, several individuals reacted, attempting to stomp on the small creature to eliminate it. The rat, realizing the danger, frantically dodged their feet, twisting and leaping in desperate evasive maneuvers. It barely managed to escape the chaotic scene, but in the process, it lost its balance, tumbled forward, and ended up rolling into another area entirely. The new location was a training facility where the group's members were actively working out. Han and Togi were lifting dumbbells, training their biceps. Moon and the glasses-wearing man were performing bench presses. The archer and the poison-wielding woman were working out on the other side of the room. Meanwhile, the healer and the werbear woman were taking turns using the lat pull-down machine. Observing the sheer intensity of the training, the rat found itself in awe, its tiny mind racing as it marveled at the sight. What kind of place was this? At that very moment, elsewhere, a new figure appeared. A woman, clutching her head, muttered that she was experiencing pain. She had been inside that very subway station earlier, and now she was suffering from a splitting headache. Perhaps this pain was a lingering effect of when the rat had collided headfirst into the system's invisible barrier. Bringing her hand to her mouth, she let out a smile, one that gradually morphed into something filled with twisted excitement. She spoke softly to herself, claiming that now, at long last, an opportunity had presented itself. A low chuckle escaped her lips, and soon she was grinning almost maniacally. She had finally found a way to survive. However, she quickly realized that the real challenge was how to actually reach that place. For now, she only needed to make her way to the station where the group had been. As she gnawed at her nails, she considered the possibilities. Perhaps the only viable method would be to traverse the subway tracks, but there was a major obstacle in the way, the monster that currently occupied the station, blocking the path forward. And yet, instead of despairing, she clenched her fists with determination. That was precisely why she still had a chance. There was nowhere in this world that she could not reach. At her command, a swarm of rats began to emerge, flooding the entire area.